The Beast Sect was housed in Xian Meng. It was quite famous and was among the top 4 sects. Let me introduce you to a disciple of this sect. Xiao Zhen is the best in the Beast Sect, something that everyone recognized, and no one dared to say that it wasn't deserved. Today was a very important day for him. The day he would create his first heavenly beast core. Xiao Zhen was very distinguished among the other sect disciples, at the very least because he had a high speed of development and cultivation. It was likely that he was the one who would be able to create the heavenly beast core. At this rate, even a teacher and sect master in the same person, Yin Wentian, envied him, which he didn't even try to hide. If Xiao Ren was able to create a heavenly beast core, not only would he strengthen his cultivation, but he would also be able to communicate with imperial beasts. He would probably even reach a depth where he could merge with the imperial beasts, gaining a completely new strength. Yin Wentian couldn't create the heavenly beast core, but he hoped that his disciple could. Besides, he had prepared everything for it. The Gu Yuan's spiritual core was already in his hands. The young man had a heavy burden on his shoulders. He must create a new beast core and glorify the Beast Sect. But Xiao Ren didn't even think of bowing to this burden, and promised that he would do his best not to disappoint his teacher. Satisfied with his disciple's answer, Yin Wentian allowed him to go, but reminded him that he must read the text carefully. Xiao Ren was overjoyed as he received the Heavenly Beast Core and its book, the Yuhuang Juexin manuscript. Not everyone had such an honor. Of course, there were also envious people who couldn't just be happy for him. Xiao Ren wasn't the only one who wanted to receive the manuscript. For example, this guy also wanted one for himself. His friend was aware of this, and could assume that he was jealous, though he did not admit it on the pretext that he had no reason to be jealous of an orphan. But their little argument was interrupted by the master's gruff tone. Instead of the disciples devoting themselves to cultivation, they spent their time envying their comrade, furthermore, pouring mud on him. What a disgusting way of thinking. As soon as the teacher reprimanded his students, he immediately quieted down and asked them to follow him, for he had some task for them. The students had a lot of respect for their teacher, even though he had just told them off. They were happy that they had been shown attention and that they were needed. Yin Wentian was the world where Xian Meng and the rest of the Immortal sects were located. The 4 strongest sects existed here: Miao Sect, Tianling Shi, Baihua Meng, and the Beast Sect. In the distant past, an immortal master of all beasts opened a portal that could be used by both beasts and humans. He came to the Beast Sect and conquered countless other sects, making the Beast Sect one of the 4 strongest sects. Many generations later, the secret of the Heavenly Beast Core technique was revealed, and the Beast Sect's status naturally rose among other sects. The young man was excited to create the Heavenly Beast Core. After carefully studying all the materials his teacher had provided him, Xiao Zhen worked hard on cultivation. But an ordinary beast core would not satisfy Xiao Zhen's desires. He was willing to do anything he could just to create a heavenly core beast, so he spared no effort and did his best to achieve the desired result. He spent the entire night in this position. It was on the same day that he and Dali had gotten the kernel, because he was so eager to start cultivating. A little more time passed, but there was no longer a solid silence of cultivation. There was a huge explosion. This could be considered a breakthrough. Definitely yes. The beast stepped outside, unable to fit its size into the cabin. The first person who felt it, after Xiao Zhen himself, was his teacher. Yin Wentian was happy that his disciple really didn't let him down and kept his promises. Xiao Ren was happy that he could please his master. It was a great honor for him, because he had kept his promise and fulfilled a request that was not trusted to everyone. Therefore, he decided to visit the master right now. It was already late at night, although it seemed as if Yin Wentian had been waiting for Xiao Zhen all night. The guy wanted to move closer to the door and enter the room, but there was an explosion inside that threw him aside. Not only was there a teacher inside the room, but there were also spirit serpents devouring souls. Fearing that the master was in danger, Xiao Ren wasn't afraid to go inside, but froze in question when he saw the strangers. This was the first time Xiao Ren had seen these people, and was puzzled how they knew the techniques of the Beast Sect. But the strangers were silent and didn't even utter a single word, as if they were trying not to give themselves away. But this was just a call for Xiao Zhen to test the heavenly core on them. The fight was in full swing. Xiao Zhen had used Shanjin's Jade Tiger destroying technique. The stranger, after this technique, rumbled out of the room, which, by the way, was destroyed. But that wasn't the end of it, for the second stranger was still conscious and decided to attack from the back himself, only to end up in the Jade Tiger's mouth in flight. The stranger couldn't move, and Xiao Ren wanted to walk over and look at who was hiding behind the mask. His identity was about to be revealed, but he couldn't resist it, even though he hid himself so carefully. Fortunately, he was saved by chance. Something flew straight at Xiao Zhen's back. He had to bounce away to avoid getting hurt. A third stranger appeared, covering his own. It was obvious that this was the most important among them. He must have been stronger than the other two, and he was dressed completely differently. The appearing stranger immediately rushed out, but Xiaoren wasn't going to let it go and rushed after him. It was most likely a trap, and the stranger was just trying to lead Xiaozheng away, and they ended up on the Huisho cliffs. This was where the stranger began to speak. Not counting Xiao Zhen, the last time the Heavenly Beast Core was created by the sect founder. That was 573 years ago. Xiaoren had great potential. The stranger felt sorry if it would go to waste. Given the young man's talent, he would truly achieve a lot in 100 years. Unpleasant guesses as to who this stranger was echoed with terror in his mind and body. The sect couldn't wait 100 years for Xiaoren to get back on his feet, and this was decided by a stranger who knew his disciple very well. As expected from a heavenly core beast, Xiaoren could withstand a divine world-level attack, although he himself had only reached the golden level. Even after this attack, Xiaoren couldn't wake up and recover from the horror he had just experienced. It wasn't even that he had to defend himself from the attack. The man who had replaced his father, the man Xiaoren trusted and believed in so much. Right now, he wanted to destroy him. Along with the pain of betrayal, the young man was racked by a physical pain that he was unable to control. Unable to realize what was happening at all, it was hard for him to understand where the pain came from. The teacher was kind enough to explain that in that Gu Yuan core was Qi Zhen energy, turning into poison when it came into contact with the Qi of a snake. If Xiaoren willingly gave the heavenly core to Yin Wentian, he would die painlessly. The former teacher had completely lost his honor. Xiaoren agonized, but he didn't even think of doing his former teacher any favors. Yin Wentian had always dreamed of possessing a beast core, but he was unable to do so. Under this thirst, he was willing to destroy his own disciple. What kind of teacher was he after that? Since the disciple wasn't going to give up and hand over the core voluntarily, Yin Wentian decided to take it away forcibly. It was a disgusting sensation. It was not just a nucleus, but an organ that was being torn out of your body. Xiaoren had possessed the nucleus for less than an hour, but even that was enough time for it to take root as his own. The only thing that made him happy was that he was still conscious after such an agonizing torture. Yin Wentian didn't even have time to take hold of the heavenly beast core before it transformed into another hypostasis. With its roar, the jade tiger cracked the mask on Yin Wentian, causing him to be unspeakably surprised. Even outside of the body, the core was very strong. Yin Wentian was like a mad scientist who had just discovered his philosopher's stone. Nu had waited for this moment for so long and finally succeeded. He couldn't even believe it. Xiaoren was completely shattered and tried to understand why his teacher had done this to him. But in response, he heard one thing, for the sake of the cult. Was it true? Their discussion was not destined to continue, since all the sect disciples had fled to the place where the teacher and Xiaoren were. As soon as he noticed this, Yin Wentian immediately made it look as if Xiaoren had decided to attack and kill him. The disciples heard the sounds of battle, and so arrived as quickly as they could. In addition, they found some pieces of paper in Xiao Zhen's house. To think that a disciple attacked his teacher who treated him as his son. He also stole a sect relic. No mercy for him. Did the disciples really think so? The master clarified. Maybe Xiaoren will admit his mistakes. Still without strength and barely standing on his feet, Xiaoren only laughed in response, realizing that he had been tricked like a fool, and he had fallen for it without any suspicion and trusting his master more than anyone else. Had he really made a mistake? Except for one, when he trusted his master. Xiaoren looked like a scoundrel in the eyes of all the disciples. 3 of them understood the secret of this matter, the master himself and his 2 accomplices, while the others blindly believed them. Seeing that Xiaoren was not going to admit his guilt, Yin Wentian decided to finish what he had started and finish off his disciple. According to the sect's rules, the wild beast should have starved to death. As righteous master Yin Wentian followed this rule and finished off his disciple by throwing the abyss away as soon as he was no longer needed. Whether he was alive or not already, he didn't stand a chance even from the very beginning, as soon as he started to resist. Being consumed by this abyss, he made a promise to himself that Yin Wentian would burn in his rage forever, and Xiaoren's rage would never fade away. In the next life, he would pay for what he had done with blood. Xiaoren plastically landed on the stone cliff, which was slightly damaged by his fall. Even here, he was not allowed to just lie there. A snake that had spotted him bit him right in the arm, and its venom made his veins pop, and not just on his arm, but all over his body. It seemed as if the young man was still conscious, but he couldn't resist the bite. Xiaoren felt as if he was about to cross that thin line and seemed to be in another world. What did he care about his body now? They did whatever they wanted to do to him, and whoever they wanted to do it to. Xiaoren had become a helpless toy in the hands of fate, which disposed of him as it saw fit. Did he have any feelings right now? Probably not. The recent events had trampled all his faith in people, all his faith in humanity, as if he was reaching for death himself and didn't want to or couldn't even resist it. He again flew into a new abyss, where he fell on the tail of another beast. But the story of the formerly cheerful young man did not end there. A few years, or a few hundred years, maybe thousands. It's been a long time since this beast had a human. But this guy's body was very weak. Even so, the dragon sensed potential in the young man. This was no ordinary beast. It also had an inherent regret. Once in this dungeon, Xiaoren should have rotted in darkness, but the energy of the remnants of the beast's celestial core remained in him even after such a difficult battle. This boy really surprised the ancient beast. Xiaoren had piqued the dragon's interest, so she tried to awaken it. It felt that the young man was still alive, a body that was capable of creating the beast's celestial core. The dragon speculated that perhaps this would be the key for him to this cage the beast sat in. He was still reeling from the experience. Perhaps 2 hours had passed. But it was an emotion he would remember forever. The silhouette of a formerly native teacher and man was imprinted in his mind as his truest enemy. Xiaoren woke up in a cold sweat, as if after a nightmare. But unfortunately, it wasn't a dream. His left hand was like a dead man's. Xiaoren couldn't even feel it. But at least he was alive. Should I be happy about that or not? Xiaoren could still laugh. The beast watched as all the wounds healed on him like a dog. But for now, Xiaoren didn't know who was communicating with him. The dragon was in no hurry to show herself as she didn't want to scare her guest. But since he asked for it, she couldn't refuse him. She warned the young man not to be too frightened before coming out. But surely he already knew who was in front of him. Xiaoren could smell the scent of a beast. He realized that the beast in front of him was a mystical beast, or even a demonic beast. This brought to mind that he might be eaten, but there was no mention in the books that beasts could take on human form. Sensing the guest's excitement, the dragon hurriedly reassured him. After all, she still wouldn't be fed by a person who didn't possess cultivation, and besides, she was very picky about food. But after these words, the guy didn't feel any better. So the dragon decided to continue, because earlier she had heard the boy shouting, "Teacher! Teacher!" So she assumed that the boy had been betrayed by his master. Xiaozhen only made Xiaozhen angry. It was as if they were going through his head. When the dragon took on this appearance, all the people would look at her strangely. But right now, in Xiaozhen's opinion, she was scary. Xiaoren recognized her. Maybe after the demonstration of the second appearance, the guy was starting to understand more about who had him now. This girl in dragon's name was Zhu. That's what she asked to be called. She realized the guy was going to have a lot of questions. But before he did, she wanted to ask him something too. How'd the guy get in here? This place is the very back of the Wanshou Valley. Only dying beasts came here to face their last moments in silence. This question made Xiaozhen remember all the crucial moments of his past. He had been betrayed and defamed. These 2 words were enough to understand why he was here. Realizing the situation, Zhu offered him a pact. After that, Zhu would help the young man recover his cultivation, and once he got out of here, he could take revenge. There was nowhere to go, and thoughts of revenge occupied his whole heart. Of course he was in agreement. Was Xiaoren not even afraid that Zhu would trick him? In fact, he wasn't even good for this girl's food. What was the point of her deceiving Xiaozhen? Such arguments were already pleasing to Zhu, however, and she liked the guy as a person. It was time to make a pact. Xiao only needed to give his hand to do so. Under the stars, the sun and the moon, a blood pact will be made. During the contract, Xiao came up with such a question. Why did Zhu want to enter into a contract with him? She probably didn't know it herself, and referred to the fact that the weather was nice. In addition, she was in a good mood. There was a reason why she thought she was one of the most terrifying beasts in the world, and she didn't hide it in front of Xiaozhen. Zhu was different from the beasts that Xiaozhen had always used. It did not thirst for blood, and its form would only depend on Xiaozhen's desires. Zhu would help the guy in battle. Compared to the pain of betraying a sect master, the pain of making a pact was nothing. With astonishment, he felt a core within himself. Xiaozhen's inner core was appearing. It was palpable that this boy was seriously injured. His inner core was shattered. his meridians severed. He was still alive only because of his willpower. Zhu could only assume that the man who had betrayed him had tried hard. Zhu understood the boy as well as anyone, for she too knew what betrayal was like. Today, his body would become theirs, and the lives of Zhu and Xiaozheng would become one. They made a promise to protect each other and not to disappoint. This pact was sealed in blood and was sacred to both of them. Just like that, a whole month passed after the pact was made. Xiaoren tirelessly continued to cultivate. The betrayal didn't break him, but only fueled the fire of rage that made him live and become a better person. After all, he was happy that things had turned out this way, for at last his inner core had finally formed and his meridians and arm were in perfect order. But he rejoiced too loudly, which eventually had consequences. From above, many large rocks sprinkled from the cliff, from which he tried to somehow maneuver. I guess it's time for him to leave this place. He's been here for a while, but even though he thus had to jump off the cliff again, he was happy that he was finally fully healthy. But he was not allowed to rejoice again. The snake that had once bitten him was a looming threat. The snake didn't get stronger, but Xiaoren did. For him, it was not a poisonous snake, but just a small snake that no longer caused any problems. This snake had other congeners, but no fear Xiaoren felt towards them. It didn't cost him anything to straighten out such huge snakes, as if they were just like some kind of joke to Xiaozhen. Feeling a surge of strength and vigor, Xiaoren wanted to head straight to the Beast Sect, but Zhu was against it. There was no need to rush. It was too soon. Plus, one of the reasons was standing right on the rock. It was his first step towards revenge. The protector of Wanshou Valley, Xiao Zhenyu, will have to deal with him before he can move on. After assessing the opponent from afar, Xiaoren felt the urge to take a different road, but there was unfortunately no other way. After that day, another 3 whole months of diligent cultivation training had passed. During this time, Xiaoren learned to control not only himself but also Zhu. However, if he wanted to master the true power of his inner core, he would need to understand how to fight better. After all, Zhu didn't know how to fight. During the time Xiaoren had spent in the Beast Sect, he had developed his own fighting style, and it wasn't a problem. He already understood his weaknesses and strengths, and had only managed to improve his abilities over the past few months. To convince his partner of his strength, he defiantly smashed a huge cobblestone that stood in front of him. It worked out pretty well for him. I'd even say he just touched that cobblestone as it shattered. But Zhu was of a different opinion, and thought such a technique was simply disgusting. If they now shared one body, then if they were to unite, the strength of the technique could increase by hundreds of times. The stronger their bond, the stronger they would be. If they could achieve divine fusion, Xiaozheng's will would shape the world. The mountains will become dust, the sea will boil, and the stars will go out if the young man wants them to. But for that to happen, Zhu would just need a little help. Without asking permission, she went straight back into his head. This was the way she planned to show her true power. This was a ruinous strike. If Xiaoren could only destroy a single stone, then Zhu would destroy the meters ahead, and it didn't matter what was in the way. This power was incredible if you learned how to use it and picked the right battle tactics. Xiaoren was literally stunned by the girl's strength. But then, he didn't understand what she was doing at the bottom of this valley, alone amongst the bones. Zhu's strength was quite unusual. Without a guide, she wouldn't be able to use her power at all, which was essentially useless. In the past 3 months, Xiaoren had recovered very well, and his strength had reached the Golden World level. Zhu thought it was wise to go and check on their acquaintance now, but it looks like they didn't even have to go because he decided to come on his own. The battle with Zhu Yan would be bloody, for it was a legendary mystic beast and there were chances that Xiaoren might lose to it. The best tactic now was to hide and attack the beast at its weak point. The skin of beasts is very thick and tough. Zhu Yan was no exception, but there was no fur on his belly. In addition, his core was located there. If Xiaoren was able to defeat this beast, he would be able to absorb its core energy. In that case, Xiaoren and Zhu would become stronger and maybe even have some special abilities. Zhu still hadn't given up, but where would she go when she left the valley? Would she look for that person? As long as Zhu Yan was protecting the Wanshou Valley, she couldn't go anywhere from here, and this man could leave. The affairs of the beasts didn't concern him, so he could still survive. But these all words had no meaning. Everything had been decided long ago. Xiaoren was not going to retreat from the battle. The size difference between the Zhu Yan beast and Xiaojin was huge. Compared to the beast, the boy was like a bug. Zhu Yan had underestimated the boy, but that was only to Xiao Zhenyu's advantage. No matter how small he was, He now had the strength of an ancient beast lurking within him. Compared to this bulky man, Xiao was very fast and agile. Zhu Yan didn't even have time to follow up on these blows, which, by the way, didn't hurt him much. The beast's attacks were very strong, and it always tried to cover weaknesses. The right option was to dispel its attention first. In brute force, Xiao and Zhu definitely couldn't be defeated because they were too weak. But it seems Xiao had waited for the moment when his opponent's attention would not be focused on his weak point. Just as Xiao had agreed with his partner earlier, Xiao aimed straight for his stomach. There was no way Zhu Yan would be able to react to such a blow in time. Luck was still on our hero's side. It still wasn't a win, but it was definitely progress. The important thing is not to get excited ahead of time. After such a blow, Xiao Zhenyu had to bounce back. If he hadn't practiced for months on end, this punch would have been his last. But now he was able to endure. This blow not only wounded Zhu Yan, but because of the affairs of his ego. To think that a lowly mortal dared to injure such a beast. Zhu Yan came in a rage and literally threw fire. But Xiao Zhenyu had nowhere to dodge. Is he just going to burn up and no amount of force can help him now? Fortunately, he was able to block his opponent's punch. Even though having been hit by Zhu Yan's weak spot was still capable of strong attacks. What should Xiao Zhenyu do now? The attack was about to happen again. Xiao was on the verge of death. Without Zhu's energy, he just can't cope. Right now, he has to hand over control to his partner, or else. This was not something he wanted to do. Once on the verge of life and death, Xiao felt something. He had a plan, and now, in such a critical situation, he was asking to be trusted. After another blow, he became a stone statue. But he survived, saved by what was called merging with Zhu. And that's just part of this ability. However, he was not going to give up because now it was his turn to strike with his punches. Gathering his strength and Zhu's strength, he once again attacked Zhu Yan's weak spot. It was not the same weak strike as the last time. The strike, which merged with the strength of the human and ancient beast, felled Zhu Yan without any chance to even defend himself. But that wasn't all. He wanted to completely destroy his opponent, so that he wouldn't even have a chance to retaliate. And it seems, did they make it? In that deadly dance, their souls collided, their destinies intertwined with the rhythm of battle. But in the end, only one of them remained standing on that battlefield, covered in blood but filled with pride. Zhu thought they had failed, but her master Xiao did. The enemy had indeed been defeated. The first step had been accomplished. You could proudly take your trophy. As if playing mommy, Zhu decided to actually feed Xiao a core from her hands, which was clearly unaccustomed to him. After accepting this gift, his body, his spirit began to turn blue. Now, his attacks are so powerful that they can shatter mountains, and his defenses are as impenetrable as a wall. But more importantly, he has grown wiser and realizes that true strength is not only in destruction, but also in the ability to protect. It was tellingly obvious that Zhu had not lied. After all, with this spiritual core, the young man would be able to use a third of Zhu's power. Previously, he could only use the first level of her power. Now, thanks to this battle, he had reached the peak of the Golden World level. This energy was completely different. It wasn't like the energy of beasts. And now he also had Zhu fusion techniques. Now it was the turn of the Beast Sect. One of the members of this sect was already standing on the Hui Shou rock. A purple lightning bolt caught his attention. It clearly indicated that some beast had surpassed the Golden Core. Curiosity had led him here, but he would likely pay for his curiosity and past deeds. It had been a long time since they had seen their former friend. Surely Xiao would give him a warm welcome. The boy couldn't believe that Xiao was still alive and kept trying to figure out, is it true that he could see him? As far as his memory didn't deceive him, the guy remembered that Xiao had died. Xiao Zhen's cultivation had been completely destroyed, and he had been thrown to the back of the Wanshou Valley. And now he had not only survived, but had also become stronger. There was something wrong here. How did he even have the nerve, this traitor Xiao Zhenyu, to return to the Beast Sect? The mere word, traitor, made Xiao Zheng's blackness blacker than a cloud. Those scum ruined his cultivation, took away his heavenly beast core, and also we wanted to kill him. And now they dare to call him a traitor. Today, Xiao would make the Beast Sect pay for it. If Yin Wentian hadn't picked up Xiao Zhen, he would have probably died as an orphan. Besides, the sect had accepted him and taught him their techniques. But he had stolen the sect's relic and attacked the master. Wasn't that enough to call Xiao Zhenya a traitor? How skillfully everything could be turned inside out. The Beast Sect had its own style, but Zhu believed that her master's resolve would not be shaken by any words. But not only did they not shake, they made him angry. Nangong would regret being born, not just being here. But maybe that's what Nangong was after, to anger Xiaozhen. The inexperienced fellow was trying to dodge Xiaozhen's blows, and Xiaozhen in turn was controlled by the rage and injustice of past events. Xiaoren was ready to fall into the abyss, and Nangong was already rejoicing in his victory. But the second one had clearly underestimated his opponent. It was unlikely that in the past 3 months, he had pumped up his cultivation and strength the way Xiaoren had. Realizing that his opponent had reached the golden core, Nangong clearly began to doubt his abilities. But more terrifyingly, he couldn't realize why this brat had managed to recover the golden core in a couple of months. To reach the pinnacle of the golden world, Nangong would need the secret techniques taught to him by Yin Wentian, and Xiaoren had managed to do everything on his own. However, he didn't care anymore because Xiaoren had lost his heavenly beast core, and Nangong considered his cultivation to be much higher. Nangong relied on Xiaozhen's weakness, but was this the right choice? No. Nangong sensed that something was wrong, but unfortunately, his self-preservation instinct wasn't working. Xiaoren had learned how to fight snakes, so it was not difficult to crush the snake created by his opponent to him. But there was a problem. This snake was not alone. Other snakes appeared from the back. During the battle, dust clouds rose up. Nangong thought he was the winner, because no matter how talented a person was, he could not survive a direct attack from a person who had reached the pinnacle of the golden world. That time, he had been spared his life. But now there was no mercy. Xiaoren was in agreement with absolutely every word Nangong said. Back then, these scumbags had survived, but today, luck was not on the sect's side. Before entering a new battle, Zhu hurriedly warned her master not to let rage control him. Xiaoren had already mastered the fusion technique, which meant Nangong was not a danger to him. The opponent didn't quite understand who Xiaoren was talking to. Ignoring this, he once again rushed into battle. All of the attacks passed by Xiaozhen's side. The young man still managed to control himself. Finally, when the moment came, he grabbed Nangong's dirty hand, with such force that the opponent tired uncomfortably. Xiaoren didn't really want to kill him, so he warned that if Nangong helped him reveal Yin Wentian's true identity, he would be merciful. But how naive he was. Did he really think he was dangerous to the Beast Sect? Until Nangong's arm was completely broken, he used the snake escape technique. Nangong had accepted his second identity, but he was still of the same opinion that Xiaoren was talentless and would not be able to compete with the master. When he disappeared, the powerful predecessor of the Beast Sect appeared, and the master managed to finish his plan. Xiaoren was only a stone in Yin Wentian's path. The difference in strength was huge. Xiaoren could feel it. Compared to Nangong and Zhu Yan, it was like the moon and a moth. But it seems today's fight is not destined to continue. He has been summoned by the master. Xiaoren wanted to chase after his opponent, but he had already fled away. If Xiaoren used Zhu's strength, this creep would definitely not run away. But it wasn't time yet. It was better for his enemies not to know about his alliance with Zhu. The plan remained unchanged. Xiaoren planned to go to the sect and hopefully meet Nangong. Zhu realized that it was too early, because the master had not learned to control his rage and needed practice. But there was no point in discouraging him. It didn't take long to reach the sect. Within a short time of arriving at the sect building, Xiaoren noticed that everything here was completely destroyed. What had happened here? Zhu was impressed by the outside world. Everything here was, in her opinion, much simpler than in Wanshou Valley. And considering her long interruption in one place, she was glad to stretch her legs. But Xiaoren didn't share her joy. It seems he lasted because Zhu made him return to Wanshou Valley and continue training. The sect was already ruined long ago. It seemed impossible. But the empty rooms and the ruined building testified to it. There was no one here but them, the sudden guests. The ruined abode of the Beast Sect was filled with silence and emptiness. In the distant past, the place had been bustling with life and activity. But now, only ruins and dilapidated walls reminded of its former splendor. Xiaoren was not going to give in to his frustration, but wanted to go and find the Beast Sect, namely Yin Wentian. But if he fails, what happens then? Xiaoren didn't accept defeat. If he didn't find Yin Wentian, he would beat the information out of Xian Meng. Now the former master couldn't hide from Xiaozhen. If need be, he would get him from under the ground. Before the rage completely enveloped the young man, Zhu hurried to calm him down. She reminded him of what the guy had said to him. The Beast Sect has become stronger since Xiaozhen left. Zhu chose Xiaozhen because he was able to create the heavenly beast core. She didn't know how his master had managed to pull it off, but it gave him a boost that could take him beyond the unimaginable world. With all this in mind, would Xiaoren be able to match him and emerge victorious? That person Xiaoren fought today had become much stronger when he summoned his mystic beast. Even using fusion, there was no guarantee that the guys would be able to handle him. Those words subdued the young man, but he still wasn't going to back down. In that case, Zhu will have to rescue her master. In order to avoid such a rescue, Xiaoren rushed away. But no matter how much he resisted, Zhu wanted to get the body, and she finally overpowered him. She promised that she would return the body as soon as they returned to Wanshou Valley, all for Xiao Zhen's sake. Xiaoren didn't understand one thing. Why did she put on those Beast Sect rags? In her defense, she simply explained that she was embarrassed and asked not to be mad at her. To get the guy's attention, she started a conversation about noticing one problem in Xiao Zhen's strength, although he probably wouldn't even listen to her or talk to her. But as fate would have it, he was very much interested in Zhu's opinion. Xiaoren finally showed interest in the conversation, but it was now very important for Zhu to act as arrogant as well. In any case, they couldn't resent each other for long. Zhu was a beast, so she felt that Xiao Zhen's soul was bound to another beast. That odor must have come from the heavenly beast core. Even though the smell wasn't very strong, Zhu could still smell it. It seemed like that beast hadn't fused with the core yet. Hence, as long as there was time, Xiaoren should grow stronger. There were many demonic beasts in the Wanshou Valley, so it was a great place for cultivation. Once these two become stronger, then they would begin their revenge. Suddenly, Zhu broke off her conversation as she sensed that there was someone in the bushes. They immediately forgot what they were talking about and set off deep into the woods, following the trail. The deeper they went, the more acute was the feeling that they were getting close. Finally, they came across a girl who was running away from a demonic-looking beast. How she hated to die. But in her helplessness, she didn't even scream or ask for help, practically prepared to accept her fate of eating. But she was very lucky that our heroes followed her and managed to stand up for her in time. At this moment, she felt like she was in a fairy tale where the hero saves the beautiful girl. Completely trusting fate, or rather her hero, she completely relaxed and fell down without memory. Now, not only did the stranger think Xiao Zheng was a prince on a white horse, but also Zhu. And of course, she couldn't deny herself the pleasure of teasing him. But the problems were not yet solved. The beast was merely rolled back, but not neutralized. In front of them was a demonic moon leopard. Although it couldn't communicate with humans in any way, its strength was at the peak of the golden world. Xiao Zhenyu should be careful. Excitement awoke in the guy's mind. He didn't even think that he would be able to find such a serious opponent so quickly. This time, he'll be able to give his best. This will be his second step on the road to his great revenge. Before the young man could even properly strike, the demonic leopard immediately disappeared. But no, he didn't disappear but used the demonic moonshadow. Right now, the leopard was determined to fight to the last drop of blood. Zhu wanted to help Xiao Zhenyu since she was worried. Although not long ago she also said that the master should train. So the boy relied on his own strength. There were only 5 leopards. If Xiao Ren could deal with them, he would definitely become much stronger. He created a huge vortex around him, which with its power scattered the enemies in different directions. It seemed as if it would be deadly to them, but their number had only changed by 1. This situation was very stressful for the guy, because his strength would not be enough here. In order to avoid becoming their dinner tonight, he called on Zhu to merge. The fusion transformation was happening right in front of the leopards. Even the animals were shocked. What can we say about people when they see it? The transformation took the beasts by surprise, those who had time to escape and those who didn't. That one was left for Xiao Zhen and Zhu to eat. The sensation of absorbing the demonic beast core was very different. The core of this beast was stronger, and also didn't need to be cultivated for a long time to master it. Each beast had a different strength, just like cultivators, so the feeling was different too. Here comes the sleeping beauty awake. She was surprised to be alive. As soon as she woke up, Xiao Ren immediately started questioning her about how she got here and who she was and why she was here in the first place. There was no room for romance. But the girl wanted so badly to think she was in a fairy tale that she thought the guy had some personal business with her. In order not to appear suspicious, Xiao Ren moved a decent distance away and first explained himself what had happened recently. Realizing that this awkward situation was because of her, the girl immediately apologized and introduced herself. Her name was Qinlei. It turns out that this girl also belonged to the clan, and she was from the 100 Flowers sect. Xiao Ren also introduced himself and clarified that he was not a member of any sect. For some reason, Xiao Zhenya's name resonated in Qinlei's mind with a kind of terror. It was raining, and it was as if nature itself was accompanying their acquaintance. The two decided to stop in a cave and make a fire. Qinlei kept looking at her traveler with some apprehension and fear the whole time. and couldn't believe it. Was this really the same Xiao Ren? The longer she stared at him, the more she was wrapped up in the thought that someone like him didn't seem like someone who was capable of betraying his sect. Zhu noticed with admiration that her master was keeping up the mark, for that girl was looking at him very intently, but he did not care. Mentally, Xiao Ren recognized that Zhu was right, and with his current level of strength, he would simply die if he still ran into the other members of the Beast Sect. Qinlei looked at him like this. It was clear that Yin Wentian had announced Xiao Zhen's betrayal to everyone. Once the sect found out that Xiao Ren was alive, every dog in Xian Meng would be after him. It was impossible to sit still in such thoughts. So as not to frighten his companion, he decided to go out. Qinli noted for herself that Xiao Ren didn't look like a bad guy, although his appearance was ferocious. It was very cold in the cave, which made me think of home, i.e. the sect. The sect was warm and had homemade food. Qinli missed her soft bed. She briefly fell asleep, but woke up to the aroma of the food Xiao Ren was cooking. One piece was already prepared. Realizing that the girl was hungry, Xiao Ren was happy to give her the prepared food. The food smelled incredible, or she was hungry. Either way, this evening would stay in her memory for a long time. The food was not only good in smell, but also in taste. No matter what anyone told her about Xiao Zhen, she would never believe that he was a bad person. Qinlo was overcome with curiosity, but she decided to start from afar. Wanshu Valley was a very dangerous place, but Xiao Ren felt at home here. Finding dry wood, managing to get such delicious meat. Xiao Ren was easygoing and admitted that he had been living here for more than a month. Qinli began to ask the follow-up questions that this answer had elicited. A story followed. Xiao Ren couldn't even believe that he could survive. He was on his last breath when he was here. A teacher once told Qinlei that only a person with a pure and kind heart could make delicious food. So why did Xiao Ren decide to betray the Beast Sect? Qinli assumed that there was some kind of misunderstanding between him and the Yin leader. She asked her to tell her everything, because after Qinlei could pass it on to her teacher, and she would help reconcile Yin Wentian with Xiao Zhen. Zhu found this girl cute, but Xiao Ren seemed to be tired of this matchmaking. But Xiao Ren didn't understand why Yin Wentian was called a leader. It turns out that just recently, there was a meeting where the sect masters chose the person who became the head of Xian Meng. The Beast Sect, which is now the strongest sect, won. Yin Wentian stopped being a Beast Sect master and became the leader of Xian Meng. As far as Qin Li remembered, it had turned out to be because Yin Wentian had understood the method of creating beast cores and was able to create a heavenly beast core that brought his cultivation to the level of divine transformation. With such indignation, Xiao Ren was ready to explode alive and blow up everything around him. This was such an injustice. Well, the plan is very good and ambitious. The heavenly beast core that Xiao Ren created helped Yin Wentian to capture Xian Meng. The girl felt as if she was dumbfounded and woke up, not realizing, in the sense the core belonged to Xiao Zhenyu. In order to prevent the girl from making any more speculations, Xiao Ren decided to tell her how it really was. In the meantime, let's take a look at the new temple of the Beast Sect. Nanggong reported to his master what Xiao Zhenyu had seen, though Yin Wentian questioned it. Then there was also the question, why didn't Nanggong kill the bastard? They had nothing to fear, or the brother wanted to say that killing him was more important than coming to the master's call. But no one believed him. They thought he was just scared. Yin Wentian was already fed up with this bickering, so he decided to ask one last time. Was he sure he had seen Xiao Zhen? There was no doubt about it. Nanggong remembered very well. Yin Wentian had stripped Xiao Zhen's beast core and destroyed his cultivation, and he could still recover? What kind of miracle had happened to the Wanshu Valley? Xiao Ren gave his enemy no rest. Qiu Shui was happy to get rid of Xiao Zhen, if Master would allow it, of course. But the one felt that they should focus on the problems of the Immortal Alliance. Yin Wentian had become the leader of this alliance and wanted to prove himself to be the best, and Xiao Zheng decided to capture him alive, but if he resisted, he would kill him. The disciples gladly accepted this task as they couldn't stand Xiao Zheng. Besides, the master asked not to blame Nanggong, for he had summoned him back then to give him a more important task. Xiao Ren could have become a good, obedient disciple, like Nanggong and Qiu Shui. But alas, he was too talented. So talented that his teacher had to sacrifice him to make the Beast Sect stronger. If Xiao Ren decided to just lie low, Yin Wentian would spare him. But if he tried to harm the Beast Sect, Yin Wentian would not hesitate to kill him again like he did once before. The weather after the rain was incredibly pleasant. Zhu couldn't wait to stretch his legs. As for Qin Li, she was completely upset by Xiao Zhen's story. She would never have thought that Leader Yin was such a pathetic person. Qin Li was convinced that Xiao Ren was not deceiving her. And why would he do that? Besides, she didn't believe that Brother Xiao would do that to her. Shu wondered, is Qinlo stupid or kind? Wanshou Valley was a dangerous place, so Xiaoren asked the girl to leave this place. But she couldn't, as she had a very important mission. She came here for a reason, but to catch a beast for her master. Master's birthday was coming up, so Qinlei decided to give her something special. In order for the girl not to agonize, Xiaoren decided to offer his help. Qinlei wanted to catch the golden-eyed jade vibrating bird, considering this beast a worthy gift. But it seems that the mention of this beast had shocked both Zhu and Xiaozhen. However, the girl didn't insist on helping her. She had the map for Wanshou Valley, so she wouldn't get lost and there was no need to worry about her. The past owner of this map said that his ancestor drew it at the risk of his life, so he asked for 5,000 immortal stones. Xiaoren was surprised that the girl had paid 5,000. But no, it turned out that she had managed to bargain it down to 3,000. Xiaoren at this moment thought that it was better not to tell her about something or else she would torture him. Zhu noticed something else about this girl besides the card, and thought the host had better deal with it. He knew exactly what Zhu meant, so he sighed loudly, which Qinli actually noticed. She actually got the feeling that there was someone else here besides her and the guy. In order not to give away Zhu, Xiaoren referred to her overactive imagination, or maybe some insects had flown on her. But still, his before water didn't sound very convincing. Qinli didn't continue to argue. She suddenly saw something on her map that sent her into shock. If the map was to be believed, the golden-eyed, jade vibrating bird should have been right in front of them. But as far as Chu remembered, this was the place where ghost birds were supposed to congregate. How the girl even discerned from this map was a secret to Xiaojun and Ruo. But it seemed they were on the right track. The holy letters could testify to this, which meant that the bird would appear soon. What was happening was unclear, but the guys continued to follow Qinli. This card did not inspire confidence in Xiaozhen. Was Zhu sure that they should get it? Yes, because this card would help a lot with cultivation. Finally catching up with the girl, all lurked behind the bushes, so as not to frighten the fairy bird. The map did lead the boys to this bird. The bird itself was worth its name, for it was really of incredible beauty, and perhaps there was no other bird like it. Besides, she was not only beautiful, but also very strong and attentive. Catching her would not be easy. It's just a breeze! This breeze can't stop Qinli! Xiaoren urged the girl to take her time, but she didn't listen. She was confident in her abilities. After all, this bird used the wind, and her fire could use this bird. In response to the bird's attacks, Qinli used the fire beads. Yes, only this bird's wind was so strong that it easily blew all of Qinli's beads back to her. In order to avoid falling victim to her own fire beads, Qinli summoned her spiritual fire back in time. All this time, Zhu and Xiaoren did not interfere in the battle, only observing whether or not Qinlei could handle it. Zhu in turn strangely noted that Xiaoren didn't know anything much about this bird. It was rumored that the first golden-voiced, jade-vibrating bird appeared after a priest's sermon. It was a rare, spiritual creature. This bird was able to turn the words of the saints into weapons, thereby striking the soul. The golden-eyed bird could deliver sermons. She is a monster of the middle or late Jindan period. And Little Sister used the 5 Elements spell, which was an early Jindan cultivation base. In that case, Xiaoren felt obligated to help, but Zhu stopped him. There was no need to hurry. The golden-voiced vibrating bird is a monster with little spiritual wisdom. It is unlikely to take another blow. If others get in the way, the bird will become useless without its energy. In all sorts of ways, Xiaoren tried to attract the bird without harming it. If the golden-eyed bird had just obediently followed Qinli, nothing would have happened to it. But the bird continued to resist. It was clear in her own good way, she didn't want to go. The girl had to use water and fire, the harmony of yin and yang. That should have finally quieted the bird. By the looks of it, it was no longer as defiant as before. But it wasn't for long. The bird was wild, so it sought freedom by any means necessary. And the combination of water and fire proved useless. The bird didn't want to run away either, so she decided to take revenge on her opponent for bothering her. It was as if the girl was stunned. She couldn't even move or think straight. And after a while, she began to get a headache from such sounds. The golden-haired bird was already beginning to rejoice in its victory. But for some reason, it still didn't run away. Right now, there was a gap between sermons. Xiaoren didn't even think of missing this opportunity. But fortunately, or unfortunately, the bird had superior reaction, and strength besides, so the guy was thrown off. Soon, the golden-haired bird switched to Xiaozhen as a stronger opponent. From the outside, this bird seemed completely harmless, but that was just a deception. The battle was in full swing. During this battle, Xiao Zhenyu managed to wound the bird, making it even angrier. He didn't get where he wanted to go, of course. But a wounded bird won't run far either. Qinlei had finally moved away from her pain and was now trying to figure out what had happened. The bird was wounded and she wanted to escape. She wouldn't be able to defend herself, but could she at least hide in time? This was unlikely. There were few people escaping from the shadow of the moon demon, a technique that Xiao used. It was the first time the girl could observe such a reception. Agree, it looked mesmerizing. The Beast Sect used the Imperial Envoy's monster as a weapon, but Xiao decided otherwise. It was more like disguising himself as a monster. Xiao Zhenyu finally managed to catch up with the beast. But will he be able to catch it? The bird decided to go all in and play to the last man. Even though she was wounded, she wasn't going to give up and used all her abilities. Everything happened very quickly, and Xiao Zhen's clone didn't even have time to react. Therefore was destroyed and turned into a mere cloud. As a result, the other clones were also destroyed. But fortunately, these blows did not affect Xiao Zhen's body in any way. But he concluded that he had not mastered this technique well enough. The golden-eyed bird's life force was already running low. This could be their chance. She was already flying away. It seemed like just a little more, and she would not be able to catch up at all. But Qinli reacted quickly and launched a water stream. At worst, the water knocked the bird out of the way. These efforts were not in vain. The golden-eyed bird didn't even try to dodge Lady Qin's attack. It looked like that trick had not only hurt Xiao Zhen, but also the bird itself. The golden-eyed bird was still alive, which the boys were worried about. But it was injured, causing it to not even try to fly farther away. Also, the bird was very angry and vindictive, so it wasn't going to let all the wrongs get away with hurting people. The attack was very slow, which meant the guys had just as much time to counterattack. They decided to use the doe's death blow because the lighter blows weren't helping anything. The doe's kick was indeed very strong. I would say that this strength was the kind that Zhu had once shown when they first met. This kind of strength that Xiao used was unknown to Qinli. She was extremely surprised when she saw it for the first time. It caused her to admire the guy after all. He was so strong. It wasn't easy, but the boys finally managed to catch this naughty bird. She was now in a really bad condition and couldn't even move. It was understandable why she was so nasty, because she had children, and first of all she was worried about them as a mother. It was very cute, but also sad at the same time because the guys wanted to separate the kids and mom. It seemed the girl's intentions were completely harmless. Now she just wanted to pet. But the bird wouldn't even let her do that either. There was no way to provoke her. If someone approached the golden-eyed bird's chicks, it could destroy its inner core. Such a desperate bird. It seemed as if Xiao knew about this bird, but he actually realized it when Qinli patted over. After Xiao wounded her, the bird realized that she couldn't handle such opponents and wanted to fly away. But she couldn't. It tried to distract the people from its chicks, but the guys shot it down and now it had to fight to the death. If you provoke this bird, chances are it will destroy everyone here. The golden-eyed jade bird was very intelligent. In any case, it wouldn't abandon its chicks. Catching her would be impossible. Zhu knew that. But she didn't see the point in explaining it beforehand, because it was unlikely that the girl would give up on her idea without checking it out herself. Qinli seemed to have realized something and decided to act on her own warnings. With her talisman, she directed the energy flows to the jade bird. In this way, she wanted to cure the poor bird of all the wounds she herself had caused it. Qinli gave up on her own idea of catching the bird. Besides, she didn't need the card anymore, so she decided to give it to Xiao Zhenyu. Oh ho ho, what a generous girl. Zhu herself was even surprised at that. But it wasn't surprising, because her teacher had told her that she should be thankful. Still, the bird impressed Qinli, and she never gave up trying to befriend it. Zhu continued her matchmaking attempts, insinuating that Xiao and Qinlei were similar. But one day, naivety and kindness may have become their weaknesses. Zhu said something about the similarities between the two. One thing was solved, but Xiao still couldn't understand why he needed the map. There were demonic letters on it, and Xiao didn't know anything about it at all. But that was just a ban that was placed on this card. You have to use a special technique to be able to read it. It seems that this special technique was mastered by Zhu herself. But to avoid having to read everything herself, she created special glasses for Xiao Zhen, thanks to which he could now see everything. It looked like an ordinary map, but Zhu managed to spot something special. With just one glance at this map, she was already ready to take Xiao Zhen to Xiao Zhen's treasure. After a while, they found themselves at the 10,000 Beasts Cave. The entrance was rather unremarkable and overgrown, and it wasn't often to see any creature here. Upon entering the cave, it could be noted that it had a complex relief. It was as if this relief was not created by nature, but artificially. This place was a dwelling for Zhu and people like her, and also for people from the legends. But the question remained. Why could she find this place only from the map? There was a huge change. Everything had changed. The injured Zhu was already several hundred years old, and the 10,000 Beasts cave had also undergone a great change. By the way, that girl didn't have a map. Wasn't Xiaoren worried about her? After saying goodbye to Qinlei, she promised Xiao Zhenyu to tell her teacher about the unfair treatment she received. The only thing he said lastly was, "Be careful." After they said goodbye, she fell completely awkwardly from the lift, but continued to pretend she was fine and hoped to meet again. Qinlei was clumsy, so Xiaoren was still worried about her. But if he was worried, then why did he come to this cave with Zhu? Zhu deliberately tried to pressure the guy to show some gentlemanly qualities towards Qinlei. He felt guilty after this conversation, but nevertheless, he opened the map and continued to study it. A drop of water fell on the map, but afterward, something could be seen. An image of Zhu appeared on the map. There she was, just a little girl with some man. But why did this image appear only after the drop had fallen on the map? Such news excited Zhu. The past seemed to have caught up with her, and she began to remember something. She knew how this map came to be. Several hundred years ago, in the cave of the 10,000 beasts, Zhu and the master met a man who was attacked by an unclean creature. But the master, when he saw that the man was carrying an evil egg in his hands, became very angry and hated with all his heart the cultivator who had stolen it. It was later revealed that he was just an ordinary man who didn't possess cultivation. And the reason why he stole the unclean egg was because of his dying wife. Eventually, the master gave him medicine for his wife and he painted this picture. Who would have thought that after a few hundred years, Zhu would be able to see her again? Zhu continued to look at her master's portrait and her own. But Xiaoren noticed something else. A huge stone door was hidden beneath the root and darkness of the cave. Perhaps only Zhu knew what it was. This was indeed the place that Zhu Xiaozhenyu had previously told Zhu Xiaozhenyu about. For her, these places had become the truest space of the past. Touching the door, she said in awe, "Master, Zhu has returned. To the upper heavens and the lower afterlife." Zhu swore an oath to be faithful to each other for the rest of her days. The door was going to open. For Zhu, this place wasn't just some treasure cache. It was the place she had spent her entire childhood in. The interior was very ordinary, nothing special as it might seem to a casual traveler. Stone table, stone stools, stone bed. All very primitive. Based on what our hero had seen, he had already assumed that this was the residence of Zhu's previous master. Master Zhu once loved people, but he also learned betrayal because of his so-called true path. As a result, he only had to live in this small stone cave with Zhu. There were other reasons why Zhu chose Xiaoren. It wasn't just because he was able to create a heavenly core beast. It was because he and Master had the same fate. This time, Zhu won't make the same mistakes. Immediately snapped back from his nostalgic memories, Zhu ordered him to follow her, then caught the guy off guard. It didn't take long to walk. They came across a coffin. But I wondered if it was the coffin of a demonic beast. Actually, according to Zhu's memories, when her master was betrayed, he only had to live in this cave together with Zhu. They couldn't even go out. The girl didn't explain anything else. Words weren't needed here. She simply touched the coffin with her hand, as if it would react only to her. Subsequently, after glowing some hieroglyphics on the coffin lid opened automatically. Surprisingly, our boy was very frightened. He seemed to be very afraid of possible corpses. Surprisingly, he was not at all afraid of real dangers. Even the girl did not understand why the master was so angry. It was clear that there were no special dangers here. Though the guy had already fantasized there and thought something dangerous was standing inside. In any case, there were no critters or even worms in there. The girl had only pulled out the one scroll she had most likely come for. It was a jade letter, left by the master when he left Zhu. Before he passed away, he told his apprentice that this letter contained his legacy. The master's grave was also in this place. In the last battle, he decided to fight alone. Before he left, he asked that the girl prepare wine and wait for his return. But if he did not return, he asked her to keep his legacy and wait for the next man destined for her. In the end, the master was unable to return. Zhu was left alone. She had to terminate her contract with the master, and her strength faded considerably. Thus, Zhu remained in the Wanshou Valley for several hundred years. But that was all in the past. Now Zhu had met Xiaozhen. Therefore, she believed that he was the man destined to be her destiny. Accordingly, she gave the scroll to Xiao Zhenyu. Just touching the scroll was enough, as it yielded to the guy's touch. Xiaoren after that, it was as if he was in some separate space, where there was only what the master had left behind. This mystical space began to dissipate, and he found himself as if in an ordinary clearing where green grass was growing. That's where he met the demonic beast master. In the master's opinion, the young man looked rather ordinary, but the first question the master asked him was, "Do you know how to drink?" Xiaoren was already feeling confused, so now he was confused, not understanding what the master wanted him to do or what was going on. He didn't even have time to reply as the master pointed the pile at him. It was impossible for Xiao Zhenyu to hold onto the drinking bowl even with his powers. What kind of power was that? But at last he managed to get a hold of the bowl, though he had to exert a lot of strength to do so. It was a very epic moment for him, but he tried not to give the appearance that it was very difficult for him, or that he had to put a lot of effort into it. Of course, he didn't want to deny himself the pleasure of a drink, and happily chugged down the entire contents. In the master's opinion, he drank very badly. He could hardly keep the master company, but Xiao Zhen's strength satisfied him quite well. He was satisfied. However, what was the one thing he didn't understand? Namely, why was Zhu's core in Xiao Zhen's body? It was a murderous aura that Xiao Zhenyu had never felt before. It was like this aura that froze his soul, preventing him from even moving. It was as if not only the body, but also the soul itself was bound in ice chains. This kind of pressure was very frightening, so Xiao Ren hurriedly explained himself, but briefly. He was suddenly betrayed, destroyed his golden core, severely injured and thrown off the cliff, and Zhu saved him. Now they had a common core, and they coexisted together. It was as if the whole picture had become clear to the master, but that didn't mean he already believed it. It wasn't easy because you had to explain everything and prove that Xiao Ren was trustworthy, and that he was honest. Once he felt betrayed, the master became more cautious and didn't trust everyone he met. Xiao Zhen's breathing became very rapid, but unfortunately, Zhu couldn't understand what he was going through. But still, she decided not to interfere and finally waited for the guy himself to come out of the jade letter. Now he could tell Zhu that he had met the demonic beast master. Master almost interrogated him. It was important for him to know every detail, and to understand what Xiao Ren was, and if he was a threat to Zhu. But there was no need to check Xiao Zheng, for he was decently willing to take care of Zhu. She had helped Xiao Zhenyu when he was at death's door. If Zhu had any problems, he was willing to help at the cost of his life. The answer satisfied the master quite well. He found Xiao Zhen to be quite good and intelligent. The master hoped that the boy would remember this meeting. Master also wanted to tell him the secrets of beast control. They would surely be useful to Xiao Zhenyu in the future. Although this man was only a teacher, he was very worried about Zhu as his daughter, so he asked Xiao Zhen to take care of her. In fact, the fact that Zhu had given the letter to Xiao Zhenyu already said that she recognized the guy. But Master was too doubtful about everything. He was too petty like that. The master didn't have much time left. It was important for Xiao Zhenyu to memorize everything the master explained to him. The scroll was already just useless, nothing more than pieces of wood. The guys decided to leave it in the same cave. But Xiao Ren still doubted whether it was really necessary to do so. During his lifetime, the gentleman loved this place. Also, it was his method to stay in harmony with nature. But without finishing her sentence, the girl decided to borrow Xiao Zhen's body. She really wanted to do it on her own, and besides, it was unlikely that Xiao Zhen's strength would allow her to do so. The wind whirled noisily around the cave, raising a light dust from the ground. The sky above Zhu's head gave off a bright light, as if to support her. She stood in front of a huge pile of cobblestones that she herself had thrown in memory of her fallen master. They said goodbye to the esteemed demonic beast master together. Meanwhile, Yin Wentian was in his sect as usual, where he watched as the beast ate its own kind. But when he was done with his fellows, he made his way to Wentian himself. Just think of it, what insolence! Yin Wentian didn't let anyone heat up here and would immediately build everyone up, and if need be, to death. But this issue didn't go so easily with the beast, as it wasn't exactly weak. The next instant the chairman was being attacked by a new beast that was about to crush him. But would it be that easy? Considering that Yin Wentian possessed the strength of a jade tiger. The second beast was also crushed to death, completely mercilessly by Yin Wentian. In the end, the winner received heavenly beast cores that were incredibly useful. Not only would they be able to increase Yin Wentian's cultivation by several times, but they would also refine various beasts. This was exactly what Wentian needed, but let feed, and he was not allowed by his disciples. He had to immediately discuss with them the preparation of the Immortal Alliance meeting. The Beast Sect was the highest amongst the Immortal Alliance. Hence all the major sects of the Immortal Alliance responded to the gathering. However, this idea seemed to be disliked by the other 3 big clans out of the 4 big clans in Xian Meng. The Immortal Alliance was dominated by the Beast Sect, so there was no need for 4 great clans as Yin Wentian believed. In honor of this, the master decided to give his students black cores. He also said that if anyone resisted this gathering, he should be killed. Xiao Ren's silhouette is illuminated by the red glow of the fire, as if he himself is part of this mystical light. His breathing was even, as if he had merged with the surrounding nature, becoming a part of it. This moment of calmness and deep inner work filled him with strength and understanding. The way of beast control that the Beast Sect taught him was that man controlled the beast, meaning man was the master and the beast was the slave. But the master was of a different opinion. The true way to control the beast is to become a friend to the beast, treat each other as equals, and unite the 2 souls. When Xiaoren can truly spiritually merge with Zhu and they reach an inseparable bond, then their power will give rise to unlimited possibilities, and all beings will submit to them. The master gifted his last strength to Xiao Zhen, with the hope that he could help this young man and Zhu. No matter what happened, Zhu and Xiaoren had to trust each other. The master was looking forward to them becoming the leader of the Beast Sect and sowing confusion into this world. Such were the last hopes and requests of the master, who replaced Zhu's father and parents in general, becoming a guide to this world. Considering Xiao Zhen's current strength, he still couldn't fully understand the legacy of the demonic Beastmaster, but the spiritual power that the master had bestowed upon him would still be of great use to Xiao Zhenyu in the future. The disciples of the already current chairman Yin Wentian also wasted no time and cultivated. Of course, not without the help of the master himself, who sensitively guided them in everything and controlled their power dimensions. They didn't mind and were willing to poke even more just to get this tidbit from the so-called great power of the Beast Clan. Today they had a breakthrough. Perhaps even if it had not been for the teacher's help, it would hardly have happened. In any case, the teacher's help was not just for thanks either. He helped his disciples gather the beast soul and strengthen it. Thus they broke through to the boundaries of the original Yin level. But they themselves must practice controlling such a powerful beast. Xu Shui was associated with a fiery hawk, and Nangong with a devilish serpent. Now it was that time to show them how solid the Beast Sect's place in the Immortal Alliance was. To all those envious people, Nangong and Xu Shui were looking forward to completing the Beast Sacrifice Tower, and when the Immortal Alliance would submit to the Beast Sect. Xiaoren and Zhu were also not far from this tower. Zhu thought the structure was majestic. Xiao Zhen's former teacher had good taste, but any mention of Yin Wentian still irritated him. Everything Yin Wentian did was vile, dirty, and despicable. Zhu hadn't just started this conversation. She was happy to finally notice that her master was calmer. Before, any mention of his former teacher had made him furious, but now he was able to control it. At a nearby table, people could be heard talking. There were rumors that this time, the Beast Sect was holding a beast sacrifice ceremony. Interested in the conversation, Xiao Ren continued to eavesdrop further. Last month, the Beast Sect overshadowed everyone at the Immortal Alliance meeting, revealing that it was the #1 sect, and it was quite obvious that they were holding a beast sacrifice ceremony. Even the rest of the 4 strongest sects of Baihua, Miyao, and Tianlingxi didn't say anything, let alone the opinions of the common people. Furthermore, one of the men had heard that a traitor had appeared in the Beast Sect before the Immortal Alliance meeting, and they still hadn't caught him. It was pointless to continue listening to the gossip any further, so they decided to look into the deepest part of the crowd. One prophecy said that the Beast Sect would hold a beast sacrifice ceremony in the Immortal Alliance Hall on the 15th day of the 5th month. At that time, the Beast Sect's sect head would be able to subdue the ancient uncleanness using the beast heavenly core. If this prophecy comes true, Yin Wentian would definitely assert his authority by taking advantage of this ceremony. There will be many cultivators there. But will Xiao Ren and Zhu go there? Absolutely yes, why not go? It was such a rare opportunity to see something like this. Since they hadn't been pursued to kill them yet, Zhu suggested having fun for once in this world. Zhu and Xiao Ren had to follow each other and trust each other. Otherwise their cultivation might be interrupted. The master also believed that Xiao Ren would be able to retrieve the heavenly beast core in the future, and secure Zhu's safety accordingly. Zhu and the celestial core. These were complicated matters, so it should have been better to think about how to get to the ceremony first. Just invading the Immortal Alliance Hall like this was too risky and foolish. Suddenly, those 2 gossipers whose conversation he had overheard flew in front of Xiaozheng with a bang. Scarlet Fury sect disciple Chu Yan had hit those gawkers for a reason. He despised them for challenging the affairs of the Beast Sect while being commoners. Everyone knew who Chu Yan was and what sect he belonged to. People were puzzled as to why he had interfered in their conversation about the Beast Sect. Furthermore, the Immortal Alliance was not under the Beast Sect's subordination. What arrogance! For the Scarlet Fury sect, the Beast Sect was the head of the Immortal Alliance, and these people had no right to speak so arrogantly about it, and deserved a good beating. It was unclear whether Chu Yan was an ardent fan of the Beast Sect, or if he just wanted to assert himself at the expense of weak people so badly that a great chance came along. A person under such pressure was not going to admit his guilt, because there was at least no guilt. The Scarlet Fury sect only knew how to beat people up. In the beginning, when the Beast Sect didn't have such a status, then why weren't the Scarlet Fury sect so bold? These words, of course, only infuriated the Scarlet Fury sect member. It seemed as if he was ready to nail this person. Chu Yan was already ready to do so, about to do so, and the man prepared for his fate. But someone intervened, saying that the Beast Sect members were also too brazen. Under his strength and sudden appearance, all of Chu Yan's fire and fury turned into a stupor. You could see the upstart tense up. He wanted to see the stranger's face before he fought. Xiaoren managed to stop the heavenly fire palm. This guy, in Chu Yan's opinion, was at least a master of the golden pill. Xiaoren's real name, of course. Xiaoren didn't even think of revealing it, but not saying the name would also be suspicious. Therefore, he decided to be called as Shuang Yue, which meant a couple of months. Shuang Yue's name didn't say anything to Chu Yan. At that time, he also assumed that this guy was a disciple of some secret sect. In order not to run into trouble, Chu Yan decided to make a peaceful appearance. Allegedly, the Beast Sect was the leader in the Immortal Alliance, and how could some unknown person insult this sect? Of course, Chu Yan gave in to his emotions and put those rascals in their place. The strangers in turn were very grateful to their rescuer. It seemed to have settled everything and the conflict was over. But this circus bored Chu Yan. He once again gave in to rage and wanted to kill this stranger. Eventually he was defeated and returned to his teacher. He didn't tell the truth, and decided to lie that the bandit had taken the invitation to a certain student's ceremony. With these words, Chu Yan wanted to seek justice as a disciple of the Scarlet Fury sect. Of course, the head of the Scarlet Fury sect, Gu Sunfeng, was not willing to let this happen. He was ready to turn Shuang Yue into ashes for daring to humiliate his disciple. Considering that Chu Yan wanted to protect the name of the Beast Sect, Chu Shui was willing to spare him this time. So he allowed Gu Sun to deal with Shuang Yue, for which the head was grateful. Perhaps to deal with Shuang Yue, the master and his disciple would not ask for help from the Beast Sect. This Shuang Yue injured poor Chu Yan for no reason and took away the invitation. Obviously, he was interested in the beast sacrifice ceremony from the beginning. When the time comes, the Beast Sect will deal with them themselves. Therefore, it was an unnecessary hassle, although Scarlet Fury and the Beast Sect were kind of allies. At a time like this, the Scarlet Ragehead didn't trust anyone, much less the so-called alliance. Qiu Shui of course understood Gu Sun's intention. Right now, there were a lot of vile and mean people like him in Xian Meng, but soon the Beast Sect would become the head of all in the sects. Just because of the beast sacrifice ceremony, everyone would witness the beginning of the rise of the Beast Sect. Regardless of who Shuang Yue was, according to Chu Shui's plans, he would only be a stepping stone to elevate the Beast Sect. This inn was run by the Facia sect, so Xiaozheng could stay here without any worries for Xiaozheng. If he and Zhu needed anything, they could just call this uncle. At this, he left. Xiaoren could finally exhale in peace. But to Zhu, this uncle seemed very friendly. Xiaoren was quite good at talking to that girl named Qin Lei. But when meeting other people, he was very nervous. Unfortunately, he didn't know how to keep conversations going, or he just didn't want to. However, today the boys had a great harvest. The master's plan had worked, and now they had an invitation to the ceremony. Xiaoren originally planned to just teach that guy a lesson and attract the attention of the Beast Sect. But then he also remembered about the invitation. The young man didn't expect that guy to have the invitation with him. They were very lucky. Originally, Zhu thought that Xiaoren would be impulsive and irritable when he came here, and also felt the growing strength of the Beast Sect. Now the girl felt relieved. The path of revenge was very long. Xiaoren really wanted to show Yin Wentian's true face to everyone, but he knew that he had to think it over carefully and not rush into a decision. The invitation said it was a beast sacrifice ceremony. Zhu paid attention to that because she didn't know what it was. The invitation didn't explain anything. But from what happened today in the city where the Beast Sect hall was located, it turns out there were still people who disliked the sect. There were definitely those in Xian Meng who didn't want the Beast Sect to become the head of the Immortal Alliance. In other words, by using this ceremony, the Beast Sect wished to assert their influence. If Xiaoren wanted to reveal Yin Wentian's true face at this ceremony, then Zhu was a bit worried. It was also very exciting for Xiao Zhen, but he promised Zhu that he wouldn't do anything in a fit of anger and wouldn't tempt fate. However, Zhu still hoped that her master would be able to tell her everything he was thinking about. The gossip spread very quickly, and the next day, everyone was discussing that fight between Shuang Yue and Chu Yan. People marveled at how the young lad had taught that Scarlet Fury clan upstart a lesson. But for these words, the guy had to pay, although he did not even expect such a turn from the people close to him. It turned out that these people had already submitted to the Beast Sect. Brother Master had always wanted to turn the Faixia sect against the Beast Sect, but how could their sect fight the Beast Sect? As long as the back mentor was alive, he strictly forbade them from joining the Beast Sect. In that case, it wouldn't cost them anything to kill the mentor's brother to prevent them from joining the Beast Sect. Suddenly, Xiaoren woke up and found that he had fallen asleep in this position right on the table. Meanwhile, Zhu was beautifying her face. She had recently left the 10,000 Beast Scourge, and her skin was dry. Xiaoren didn't just wake up, he heard some noise. But Zhu didn't hear anything as she was focused on her skincare. Xiaoren felt anxious. He felt uneasy. So he decided to walk around. What was happening between the two men was not a dream, but a very real reality. They had killed their brother, and now they wanted to find that Shuang Yue and kill him too, and then take his head to the Beast Sect, hoping to get a confession. One of the men feared that Shuang Yue was indeed strong, but the other was confident in his strength. He wasn't going to fight, and decided to just send the poisoned food and then. But why was it such a hassle if they wanted to kill Shuang Yue so badly? It turns out that Master misunderstood them. That Brother Master wanted to kill Shuang Yue and slander them. They themselves didn't want to harm Master. There was no need to pretend, from start to finish. Xiaoren listened to their conversation and memorized everything. These things ruthlessly murdered their friend and therefore deserved to die. But Xiaoren didn't attack. These guys were faster and tied him up even. The Beast Sect should have rewarded them well for him, they hoped. It was amazing that the Beast Sect had become so filthy that it had started accepting scum like these two. Xiaoren felt it was her duty to cleanse this place of miasmas. This kind of person, Xiaoren was not going to feel sorry for them in any way. If they killed their brother, but what were they capable of next? Xiaoren was able to deal with those who tried to kill him with equanimity and judgment. He used his wits and skills. His true motives were clear. There was nothing to deal with or talk to them about. While in his chambers, Yin Wentian felt the fluctuations of the heavenly beast core, and also a very familiar breath. I've mentioned the 4 sects so often that I can't. You don't have an introduction to the other 2 as well. The Baihua sect was housed in such a fabulous place, where it was as if her life was isolated from the outside world. The head of the Baihua sect, Zeng Changxi, was talking with the head of the Mi Yao sect, Mu Chunshu. Everyone was now concerned about the beast sacrifice ceremony of the Beast Sect. Mu Chunshu asked Zeng Changxi's opinion about it. In turn, Mu Chunshu thought that everyone had to go there. But Zeng Changxi did not want to express her opinion, as she did not think herself worthy of it, for she was younger than the other head, and did not understand why he was interested in her opinion. Mu Chunshu didn't even have time to answer the counter-questions before their conversation was interrupted by a female disciple who had returned. Qinlo had completely sneaked out of the sect, and now missed everyone very much. This was her home and she was treated well here. It was clear that the master was expecting her. But the teacher was definitely unhappy that the student was sneaking out of the sect. Zeng Chengxi gently patted the girl's cheek as if she was punishing her for her disobedience. In response, Qinli promised that she would never sneak out of the sect again. Head Zeng Changxi was very worried about this disciple. It was known to everyone, and finally Mu Chunshu had the honor to face this girl. Before continuing the conversation, Qinli quickly greeted Mentor Uncle Mu. The girl was in a hurry to tell about her adventures. She had gone to the 10,000 Beast Scourge, although she could not bring a gift to her master there. But she had met someone. Zeng Changxi assumed that the disciple had met some rare beast there, and it had played with Qinlei. But Qinlei was not to be underestimated. This time she met Xiaozheng there. The masters hovered, as if they had misheard. They could not believe the girl's words. So the conversation and jokes turned to a more serious topic. In order to convince her words, Qinli reiterated everything she had said. But it was not favorable for the head to develop this topic. so she referred to the fact that her disciple had had enough fun and must be tired, so she decided to take Qin Li to her room to rest. But Qin Li's words about Xiaoren did not leave Master Mu. Perhaps the traitor Xiaoren was the weak point of the Beast Sect. All the people gathered around the inn that was in the center. No one could understand who had caused such a commotion, and in 2 days' time, the beast sacrifice ceremony would be held. Qiu Shui was certain that whoever arranged this was definitely targeting the Beast Sect. He wasn't going to continue standing in the crowd and move further into the building itself to look for any sign of them. After going around the entire building from the inside, he found a bit of spiritual cold power. Qiu Shui began to realize something. This speculation sent a chill down his spine. He didn't need to be too smart to realize that these footprints belonged to Xiao Zhenyu. He remembered that there was a person named Shuang Yue in this inn, which meant that this trace proved that Xiao Ren was here. Nonggong's words were true. Xiao Ren was still alive, and the spiritual cold strength was proof of that. If Xiao Ren was alive, he would definitely want to take revenge on the Beast Sect and interfere with the beast sacrifice ceremony. Qiu Shui felt obligated to inform his teacher about this. From Qiu Shui's demeanor, it was clear that they were beginning to tense up. In any case, the current Xiao Ren made Zhu admire him even more. Qiu Shui thought this problem was very serious and urgent, so he immediately went to his master in order to make some decision. But he didn't even have time to knock before the door opened and he flew in with a bang. Rolling over a bit, he immediately knelt before the majestic figure of his master. Against him he looked like a common mutt, which was true. Wentian's yin cultivation had doubled. The effect of the heavenly beast core was extremely incredible, something he was pleased with. Before getting down to business, Qiu Shui congratulated his teacher on his breakthrough, because this time, the sacrifice ceremony would make the whole world tremble. Finished with the pleasantries, Qiu Shui immediately saw about Xiaoyu Zhen, who was in the city and who was hiding under the name Shuang Yue. But Yin Wentian didn't look scared at all. On the contrary, he laughed like a mad scientist, as if he had been told some incoherent nonsense. Xiaoren had appeared here to make a big fuss at the ceremony, as Master had suggested. Furthermore, he wanted to reveal himself at the beast sacrifice ceremony in front of the entire Xian Meng. When a ruckus was raised, Xiaoren would try to destroy the Beast Sect. If he still did so, the elevation of the Beast Sect would be interrupted. In Qiu Shui's opinion, this was a very cruel method, although he had previously thought that Xiu Ren was an ordinary best cultivator. Xiao Ren was not a fool at all, and all the Beast Sect disciples underestimated him, but Yin Wentian saw right through him. A genius like Xiao Ren stood out from the crowd, but he couldn't lead the rise of the Beast Sect. The Immortal Alliance was now in Yin Wentian's hands. Of course, he couldn't let Xiao Zhenyu do whatever he wanted. There must not be any incidents at the ceremony. Therefore, Yin Wentian gave orders to his disciple to deal with this, so that this ceremony would become a hopeless situation for Xiao Zhen. Yin Wentian was obsessed with his idea of elevating the Beast Sect, and was willing to destroy anyone who would get in his way. Xiao Ren, meanwhile, was passing through a few inconspicuous alleyways, but he sensed that someone was following him and Zhu, and it was most likely several people. Even without turning around, he was right, though he deliberately went down an alleyway so as not to draw attention to himself. Xiao Ren addressed Zhu in a full voice. This alerted the rats to the fact that Xiao Zhen had an accomplice, even though there was no one near him. However, they didn't care about that. Since they had already been discovered, they decided to attack anyway. The fire in their hands indicated that they were from the Scarlet Fury sect, which meant that they were Chu Yan's people. These two attacked together against a man who had done nothing to them. But did they really think they could stand up to a man stronger than them, even if not alone? No matter how many times they struck him with their fire, no fire was harmful to Xiao Zhenyu. These two weren't even good bedfellows for Xiao Zhenyu, let alone opponents. One of the sect masters, Mr. Hui and Chu Yan, had the honor of watching this fight from the Scarlet Fury sect's balcony. Chu Yan immediately recognized his enemy. The ceremony was about to begin, but for now, Mr. Hui wanted to pass the time with Chu Yan's former opponent. It didn't take long to fight, but right after this battle, a new person appeared. Xiao Zhenyu was just very interested, or else these two scumbags were too weak. Xiaoren seemed too bold for Hui since he dared to fight his fellow Scarlet Fury sect members twice. Hui had already fantasized to himself that he would be able to get rid of Xiao Zhen in one fell swoop, but our hero was no match for him. He didn't even have time to notice Xiaoren dodge. What continuation of the battle could there even be talk of now? Before continuing the battle, Hui introduced himself as the young master of the Scarlet Fury sect, Hui Lian. In order to avoid being set up, Xiaoren decided to pretend as if he hadn't even heard of the Scarlet Fury sect. He asked if Hui was a Beast Sect dog. Hui's father and Chu Shui's brother were worried that Shuang Yue was a disciple of some secret sect. But in Hui's own view, Shuang Yue was a reckless, impudent brat who came from the countryside. It was enough to hear Chu Shui's name as it became clear that Hui was a Beast Sect dog after all. The conversation was short, the guys disliked each other, so Hui decided to take Shuang Yue's life with his scarlet flame sword. The power of this sword's flame could melt gold and iron. It was not worth directly approaching it. Things were bad. Xiaoren hadn't been able to react in time, and now he couldn't dodge. The mentor was indeed enthusiastic, however. Chu Shui felt that Nangong had spoiled him. Yes, only Nangong was afraid that Xiaoren and further spoiled Chu Shui's mood. When Xiaoren came out of the 10,000 Beasts cave, Nangong had fought him one-on-one. Therefore, he knew that Xiaoren stood up much stronger. Until the Yuanying level was reached, Nangong could not guarantee that he would be able to defeat such an opponent. But Chu Shui didn't really understand why Nangong was telling him this. Anyway, Chu Shui would do what his teacher ordered him to do. Although Nangong and Chu Shui were competing with each other, the former didn't want the latter's strength to be so wantonly destroyed by Xiao Zhen's hands. When they kill Xiao Zhen, and when the teacher unites Xian Meng, Nangong hoped that they could compete fairly, and then find out who gets the title of the next teacher. No doubt Chu Shui wanted to compete with his brother fairly, but as for the Scarlet Fury sect, they were nothing to Chu Shui. Chu Shui thought they were hypocritical and unworthy of even being dogs, but they were perfectly suited to test Xiao Zhen's strength. Now, there were preparations to be made. If the people from the Scarlet Fury sect failed to deal with Xiao Zhen, then Xiao Zhen would die at the beast sacrifice ceremony tomorrow. Leaving Nangong, Chu Shui thought that he had better exist peacefully with him, at least until they killed Xiao Zhen. Going back to the battle between Xiao Zhen and Hui, one could see that the former's self-preservation with on his own life. But what would he do now? So far, Xiaoren didn't dare to attack. There was no right moment. The enemy kept pouncing with new attacks, and this time, there was the truth of scarlet rage, the flames of world destruction. I wanted to sincerely kill Xiao Zhen, but he couldn't show him his strength, so he realized that there might be a catch somewhere. Xiaoren once again took a hit. There was no point in even trying to repel these blows. There was no opponent worthy of it. Thinking that he had already finished with Xiao Zhen, Hui happily left the battlefield without even checking whether or not the opponent had been defeated. Xiao Zhenyu was actually offended that Hui had already decided to leave so quickly, and in general, Hai found Xiao Zhen to be a worthy opponent for his sword. Hui was no longer in the mood for jokes. He was even beginning to fear that he might lie down in this battle. Therefore, he took his opponent seriously. But now it was Xiao Zhen's turn to attack and Hui's turn to fight back. He decided to use Yue's shadow for this battle. I surprised my adversary. Creating a new body from his own, according to legend, was magic. And this magic could only be used by an immortal. How Shuang Yue was able to do this, Hui could not answer the question. Determining where the real and false opponents were would be impossible, especially with Hui's strength. He had no choice but to fight them all off, because any of them could hurt him. Now Hui would feel what real fire was. Zhu Yan's breath was much stronger, for it was a beast breath that was a natural-born breath. Hai was powerless in this battle. There was nothing he could do except to lastly threaten that his father was the head of the Scarlet Fury sect, and his brother Chu Shui was a senior mentor in the Beast Sect. But who was he? He seems to have been nobody since he hid behind family ties, and he died a nobody. Xiaoren was able to use the power of the inner core of the uncleanness for the first time. Besides, he really enjoyed having this power, for it was like a trophy to him. But would this strength be enough to take revenge on the Beast Sect? At the ceremony to the tower for the beast sacrifice, quite a few sects came. Qiu Shui knew that it was all thanks to that Xiao Zhen's Heavenly Core Beast teacher. Ah no, thanks to the Heavenly Core Beast teacher's Heavenly Core Beast. Would Xiaoren dare to appear at the beast sacrifice ceremony? In any case, as long as Qiu Shui was here, then he could confidently say that nothing would interfere with the teacher's plans. Xin Lu and Zheng Changxi had already arrived at the beast sacrifice arena. Before proceeding further, the master clarified whether the disciple had memorized what they had talked about earlier. Xin Lu in today's situation can't afford to be testy. She must remember what master told her yesterday. Xin Luck told the teacher everything she had learned from Xiao Zhen, and felt that they had to find out the truth. But the Beast Sect with its heavenly core dominated the Immortal Alliance. Now was not the time when the four major sects were in balance. Especially the Baihua sect could hardly take care of itself. There was no point in interfering in this situation. It was hard for a female disciple to go against such arguments. But Qinlei also felt indebted to Xiao Zhenyu, since he had saved her life. In her mind, she prayed to Xiao to not do whatever he wanted before Qinli found out everything. She sincerely hoped that he was a guy still in the 10,000 Beasts Gorge and thought that there was no way he would come here. Immortal Alliance and cultivators from all over the world had gathered here to pay their respects to the Beast Sect. The disciples obediently asked the teacher to come out and open the beast sacrifice ceremony. Basically, it didn't take long to ask. Yin Wentian himself was waiting for the Immortal Alliance and cultivators of the entire world to gather here, for the sake of the Beast Sect. From today, the Immortal Alliance, even the entire world will submit to the Beast Sect, and no one will dare to question the sect's might. Everyone kept guessing, and including Yin Wentian. Would Xiao Ren dare to barge into today's ceremony? This was the right time for him to rip off the mask of his supposed teacher and avenge past wrongs. He couldn't miss such a chance. Xiao Ren was about to pay for the tea and leave, but the old man stopped him with a question. He wondered if the young man would participate in the ceremony. An affirmative answer followed. The old man sadly noted that from this day forward, the entire world would change, for it would now be the world of the Beast Sect. Only Xiao Ren had a different opinion. To avoid answering any more questions, the young man simply disappeared right in front of the old man and the other innkeepers. The main thing was that he made it clear that hope was not yet lost, and the old man noted to himself that this guy wasn't so easy. If he hadn't had bad knees, the old man was sure he would have been able to jump that high too. Zhu could feel Xiaojun's heart beating hard like no one else. He was excited and very excited. Yet he managed to keep his composure and stay focused. Today, in front of all the strongest cultivators of the Immortal Alliance, Xiao Ren will show the real face of the Beast Sect and Yin Wentian in front of all the strongest cultivators of the Immortal Alliance. Considering how the guy hadn't been hiding lately, Yin Wentian had most likely set traps for his favorite disciple and was waiting for him. Zhu was worried, so she thought about all possible situations. She was worried that the people who betrayed Xiaozheng would not let him and Zhu feel the joy of revenge. But Xiao Ren was sure that they would cause their enemies complete chaos today. All the beasts opened the path, and the Beast King climbed to the top. The disciples of the Beast Sect welcomed their master. Yin Wentian, in accordance with his status, proudly flew on a dragon, next to the other wild beasts that obeyed him completely. Everyone was surprised that he could control such a huge number of beasts. The strength of the Beast Sect head was simply terrifying. The beast that the sect head was standing on was a heaven-destroying Drakendor. All the gentlemen were greeted by Yin Wentian with a beast sacrifice ceremony arranged by the Beast Sect. A miraculous bird is a good omen. It is a spiritual bird, which was a great omen. There was no limit to the people's astonishment. They were simply shocked that the Beast Sect were able to subdue such a bird. Yin Wentian continued his speech. This time he was conducting a beast sacrifice ceremony, and not just for the sake of it, but for the purpose of telling others about two important things. The first thing he wanted to say was that he had killed an ancient demonic beast when he was traveling. With the secret method of the Beast Sect, he obtained its core. This nucleus increased his cultivation to the level he had been seeking for 60 years. Because of that, today, he would like to use it at this ceremony to choose one of the best among the disciples of the great sects of the Immortal Alliance and present him with this core. It would serve as an example for the disciples of the Immortal Alliance. There was only one condition. Xiao Ren, a traitor of the Beast Sect, was now in this area. Yin Wentian asked him to kill him. Jinli couldn't believe that Xiao Ren was somewhere here until the last moment. Perhaps it was some kind of mistake. She began to guess that the real purpose of holding the ceremony was Xiao Ren. Xiao Ren, meanwhile, was already on his way to the arena, where he was greeted by the master of the Scarlet Fury sect. The master was very angry with him because he had killed his son and his disciples. What kind of arrogance was it to come to the ceremony now? Qiu Shui was telling the truth. This boy was really cocky. Qiu Shui was quick to spread information about Xiao Zhen. In this case, there was no need to wear a mask. Before going any further, Master wanted to make Xiao Zhen pay for what he had done. But no one was allowed to stand in the way of Xiao Zhen's revenge, much less some scum. There was no way to avoid the battle. Let this be the first step towards Xiao Zhen's revenge. Warming up could never hurt either. The master promised that Xiao Ren would know the torment of being scorched today. In this way, the father hoped to comfort his son's soul in heaven. The old man immediately sent out a red fiery truth. Explosive fire essence. Zhu felt the need to dodge it. Fending off this strike would be risky. Xiao Ren understood everything and acted according to Zhu's instructions. At first glance, it might seem as if the guy had been destroyed. But even without being convinced of death, the master exulted in his ghostly vengeance. saying what a pathetic kid he was and already died like that. This was the expression on Master's face when he saw Xiao Zhen in the midst of the dark clouds of smoke. The young man warned the old man. Whoever stood in his way would be doomed to death. Alas, the Master did not believe him, and now he will pay for it. He noticed that Xiaoren possessed an unusual technique and dared him to forbid him from going crazy here. He must have already tried to use his rotten authority for fear of being destroyed. Gong Sun Feng's techniques were very fierce and loud, causing great noise and commotion. Xiaoren didn't try to hide it, but he didn't understand why no one had noticed the fight until now. Xiaoren was too absorbed in his thoughts and distracted, but his opponent was fully focused and didn't miss this moment to hit the guy. Right now, Zhu was willing to help her master get rid of the flames inside Xiao Zhen's body that came from the old man's punch, or else it could be a hidden threat. The old man also decided to distract himself and explain why the fight had not attracted the attention of any person at the ceremony. The reason was the oyster. It could create an illusion, most often found off the coast of the Eastern Sea. Individually, the oysters created a very small illusion, but together, they could cover heaven and earth, an illusion that changed the truth into a lie. As expected of a talented Beast Sect disciple, Xiaoren immediately recognized what this thing was. Qu Shui had given the old man over 1,000 of these oysters just for him to set up this illusion. Gong Sun Feng planned to kill Xiao Zhen here, and afterward, no one would even know that there was a fight here. However, before this happened, the master also wondered what kind of hatred existed between Xiao Zhen and the Beast Sect, that even the Beast Sect had to pay such a high price to keep the guy out of the ceremony. Xiaoren decided to take a chance and told the whole truth about Yin Wentian, that he had stolen his heavenly beast core and destroyed his entire cultivation, and the Beast Sect had put him in despair. Because of this, the young man took revenge, and nothing could stop him. Gong Sun Feng listened to Xiao Zheng's story and believed him for some reason. After that, he decided to spare Xiao Zheng's life. Even if Yin Wentian could control the entire Immortal Alliance after today, Gong Sun Feng would still be able to use Xiao Zhen to control him. But the old man was still not appeased. He felt obliged to cut off the boy's hands, otherwise his son's soul would not find peace. Meanwhile, in the arena, Qu Shui defiantly cut off his opponent's arm. By doing so, he wanted to show if anyone else would want to fight him as well. But what did Head Mu think of Yin Wentian's talented disciple? At such a young age, Qu Shui's cultivation was at the Yuanying level. The guy's was accompanied by a rare spirit animal. Truly a guy with a lot of promise. But here it seems the head of Zhengchangxi didn't approve of Qu Shui. With such cultivation, Qu Shui must have been able to easily win that beast core and become the leader of the arena. But wasn't that too cruel? Only this brutality was approved by Yin Wentian. The boy was only serious about winning, so much so that he struck harder. When Yin Wentian taught his disciples, he always told them that they should not show pity when facing the enemy, but should treat their allies with kindness and fairness. Head Yin Wentian's words were true. The Immortal Alliance was the Yin Head and the Beast Sect that could banish evil and maintain world peace. Yin Wentian regretted that the heads of the other two strongest clans did not agree to participate in the ceremony. The old man decided to walk away from these conversations. After all, right now someone was challenging Qu Shui to a fight, so he decided to turn his attention to this battle. The change in attention did not go unnoticed by Yin Wentian. He found the old Foxmu to be very withdrawn and cunning. Even though he looked like he would obey Yin, he probably had other plans. Zheng Changxi, on the other hand, was passive in this regard, although she had yet to submit to Yin Wentian and rebel. But those two, they brazenly refused to take part in the ceremony. Yin Wentian was ready to expel them from the Immortal Alliance. Only now, Xiaoren was the one who had become a bone across the throat of Yin Wentian and the entire Beast Clan. Yin Wentian really hoped to see Xiao Zhen's head at the end of the ceremony. The battle was getting more complicated, and now Xiao Zhenyu needed Zhu's strength. She in turn had wanted to help her master for a long time, but was just waiting for him to finally ask her to do so. Xiao Zhenyu didn't want to show his main trump card, but without it, he risked losing this battle, and then the whole plan would be over. Now it was no surprise to the old man that the guy was able to repel his attacks. It turned out that Xiaoren was hiding a strange technique. Too much time had already been lost. We needed to get this annoying old man over with as soon as possible. Gong Sun Feng had tons of questions. Where did the guy get such a technique? And who was he talking to all the time? And who was Zhu? But he had no time at all to find out the answers to these questions, because he was about to be killed. One thing he could realize was that this was not a Beast Sect technique. There was no such technique in the entire Immortal Alliance. The fight was hidden from view, but some Shadow could observe what was going on. Shadow hadn't been to the human world in a long time, but surprisingly, he had seen an interesting beast today. This trip here had been worth it. It seemed as if victory was already in his pocket, but Zhu could feel the aura of that person. Xiaoren couldn't afford to relax after such a thing, and rightly so, because the master didn't give up and managed to survive such a crushing blow. Therefore, the next attack followed Gongsun Feng, but fortunately, Xiaoren managed to block this attack in time and put up a block. The old man certainly didn't expect that such a young fellow was able to strike him. Gongsun Feng only now realized why the Beast Sect was making every effort to get rid of Xiao Zheng. To continue the battle, the old man had to use his highest image of Scarlet Flame Truth, this Scarlet Flame body. His second hypostasis. The interested spectators continued to watch the fight, as if it was some kind of cartoon to them. Shadow noticed that the demon was unrivaled among cultivators of the same level. But would he be able to stand up to an opponent who was a whole level higher than him? The Shadow kept watching in anticipation to see if this boy who had contracted with a demon would manage to surprise him as well. Still, even in the demon world right now, there was no sign of the demon he was contracting with. Xiaoren had a Yuanying level, so only if they took the initiative now, then they would have a chance to win. It was decided to increase the fusion. The Demon Shadow was also a speed improvement technique. While running, Xiaoren and Zhu used the Do attack, which was a hurricane, demolishing everything in its path and making its way towards the enemy. Gongsun Feng was so confident in his strength that he claimed that before the raging flames, any strength was nothing. Initially, Xiao Zhenyu really had a hard time restraining the raging flames. But with this flame in his hands, he was able to simply break it, shattering the flames like pieces of ice. The battle was difficult. In fact, it would be hard to win. If this continued, Zhu was afraid that Master would lose. In addition, this loss would be humiliating and cruel. The old man decided to compromise and suggested that the young man obediently follow him and tell him about this strange method in Xiao Zheng's body. In return, Gongsun Feng would help Xiao Zheng resolve his feud with the Beast Sect. But Xiaoren was unwavering after all. Those who stood in his way of revenge had to die. Gongsun Feng was slightly disappointed after all. This young man was very young and harbored many secrets that the old man would most likely not know. The battle continued, evidenced by Xiao Zhen's new attack, and the attempt to compromise was a failure. The old man managed to repel this attack. He also noted that the power of Xiao Zhen's attack was weak. He assumed that the young man was already severely injured, but the fight still continued. Only Xiaoren no longer looked like his usual self in human form. His face was already demonic. Qiu Shui's cultivation was astonishing. Nangong was delighted by his mentor brother's strength. Chapters seem to have already gotten the results of the duel at this ceremony. As the saying goes, a good teacher has good students. Head Mu was confident that from now on, the younger generation of the Immortal Alliance would follow the Beast Sect. But Head Mu was wrong. All the cultivators in the world were gathered in the Immortal Alliance, and the Immortal Alliance was a single home for all of them. So how could it be said that cultivators would only follow the Beast Sect? As always, Yin Wentian's head Yin was right. From today, the positions of the 4 major clans in the Immortal Alliance had changed greatly. Each of the friends dispersed to their respective sides. The teacher had said that the next time such a great event happened, Nangong would also be able to take the first place. Qiu Shui would enjoy this moment properly, and Nangong had to check that scumbag. Qiu Shui's plan shouldn't have failed. Nangong hoped so too, for the teacher didn't want to see Xiao Zhen at all. Although Gongsun Feng was only the head of a small sect, he was still at Yuanying's level. Nangong trusted that Xiao Zhen's core had already been destroyed. But this was a mess he didn't expect to see in any way. Xiaoren was putting a lot of pressure on Gongsun Feng. He only had to defend himself. In addition, this method of fighting was similar to that of demons. The battle was indeed bloody, and to the death. Zhu hurriedly awakened his master so that his animal instincts couldn't control his human mind. The battle was heavy, and in this battle the forces were on the side of Xiao Zheng. Gongsun Feng was losing, so he asked for help from Nangong, who came. The guy didn't expect that the senior mentor was such a weakling, so he decided to help him get rid of Xiao Zhen. It's been many thousands of years since the unknown shadow was here, and people still like to use such cheap tricks. From that day forward, this boy and demon were under the protection of a stranger. Xiaoren was so immersed in the battle that he practically turned into a beast. No matter how much Zhu Nei tried to rouse him, the attempts were even. Now this was no longer an ordinary human who was controlled by his cold-blooded mind, but a very real bloodthirsty demon. But some voice was telling Zhu not to worry. But what was that voice? The stranger had already properly entered the battle to create a complete balance in it. While Xiaoren was fighting against Gongsun Feng, the stranger decided to help him with Nangong. No one had even noticed the stranger before, so the guy was caught off guard. The unfamiliar man had managed to stop not only Nangong but also Gong Sun Feng. This spoke of the fact that he was a Yuanying level peak master. Nangong decided to play on pity, saying he was so-and-so Nangong, a disciple of the Beast Sect, on the master's orders to get rid of the traitor, but unfortunately, he didn't know who this man was and didn't understand why he was stopping him. A talented genius. Now it was no wonder that Xiaoren had taken a liking to the demon. It just so happened that the young man's heart was filled with hatred, so he was influenced by the devoured demon. Things were definitely not going according to plan for Nangong. He even started to assume that this man was from some secret sect and Xiaoren had taken a liking to him. Now Ju realized that that voice belonged to this stranger. This stranger could see and speak to Ju, which surprised her. Ju was the only surviving disaster demon. It had been 1,000 years since they had last met. Things had changed since then. 1,000 years ago, stranger was familiar with Master Ju. Back then, the demoness was very young. The man had not only seen Master Ju, but he had once clashed with the master, but now seemed like a bad time for stories. The master had completely become ferocious. His body had completely transformed into a demonic body, with almost nothing left of his human body. Ju continued to be nervous as there was nothing she could do to help or reach Xiaojun. But fortunately, the man decided to take care of the problem and ordered the demoness not to worry. Shining Moon, the transparent castle, went into action. Ju's only request was that Master would not do anything bad to Xiao Zhenyu, but he promised no harm would come to me. Nangong, noticing that the Master had captured the so-called traitor, asked him to hand it over to him, but he was shouting too loudly, which the man didn't like. As a consequence, a terrifying aura erupted. With this aura, the man was trying to tell the strangers to come to their senses, as it was unlikely that the gentleman wanted to get his hands dirty with such cattle. Gong Sun Feng did not deviate from his plan and suggested that he did not talk to the Lord, but simply take Xiaozheng away by force. Nangong decided to cheat and let the old man try to do it. The first attack came from Gong Sun Feng, who attacked with a flaming sword. The old man planned to kill the Lord, and then take on Xiao Zhen. The gentleman had a similar plan, deal with those pesky flies first, and then return to Xiao Zhenyu and Ju. The stranger didn't even make any extra movements to stop the old man's flaming sword. It seemed like something supernatural, but the old man would never know about it again. The Lord was not going to let these scum live, as they were quite undesirable. He used his magic wand to create a huge black hole. This hole was consuming the old man lightning fast, and no Nangong would help him with this, no matter how much he begged. It was nature's way. The firefly couldn't compete with the light of the moon. Suddenly the Lord felt sad. For traveling in this world, he had seen only the vicissitudes of fate, the abandoned graves of old men. Only the moon did not age even after thousands of years. Here was a living example of what was to come, and Nangong was still looking for death? Calming himself down, he clarified that whoever was here, an illusion had been created here. Appeasement turned to threats, because once he removed this illusion, all the participants of the sacrifice ceremony would come here, and then the Lord would have no place to escape to. The master recognized that the boy was not wrong. In turn, Nangong advised him to give him Xiaozhen, or else. In that case, the Lord decided to offer to get rid of this illusion, for he just had one thing to do. With a flick of the stranger's finger, the entire illusion of the wall vanished that instant. The gentlemen who were at the ceremony became nervous. Everyone could observe and feel the intimidating aura that was spreading around the entire tower. It was clear that this aura was coming from the place where the illusion was set up. This aura was demonic power. As an experienced cultivator, Yin Wentian understood this and feared it. All 3 chapters decided to go to that place and see what was going on. Xinli was still standing in the middle of the crowd and hoped that Xiaozhen was all right. After arriving at the place, the first thing Yin Wentian noticed was his disciple and Xiaozhen. But the master seemed to have been expecting his arrival. But the first question was addressed to the gentleman. Even the heads did not know who he was. Since Yin Wentian and the other 2 were the main ones in the Immortal Alliance, the stranger let them know who he was. He is the Lord of the Moon, one of the 4 lords of the demon world and of heaven, Uemo Guheng. Today, the Moon Lord had specially come here to say something to the Immortal Alliance. In order to prevent people on Earth from suffering, he hoped that the Immortal Alliance would bow down to him and the demon world. In this world, there was a legend of a battle between demons and immortals thousands of years ago, in the field of which the demons were imprisoned in a deep abyss. Yin Wentian was convinced that it was true every time. But he didn't understand how the Moon Lord appeared in the human world. Everything in this world was divided into 2 classes, and on the path of cultivation, there was also a difference between good and evil, immortals and demons. Since the beginning of the cultivation path, there had been a division between immortals and demons. Immortality cultivators utilized the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. There were many different cultivation methods. It was either taking the golden elixir or cultivating Yuan Ying. And the demonic power cultivators were insidiously taking away the spiritual power of others and thus cultivating. As a result, 1,000 years ago, a terrible war broke out between immortals and demons, leading to the death of many cultivators and the founding of the Immortal Alliance. The war between immortals and demons ended with the Immortal Alliance winning and sealing the demonic power cultivators in the abyss. Since the war had taken a heavy toll on immortal cultivators, the various sects of the Immortal Alliance had kept the details of the battle silent and hidden. Who would have thought that, after so many years, this sealed history would come out? It was extremely unpleasant for the Moon Lord to talk to an alliance of immortals and repeat this very thing. Would they bow before him, before the demon world? Yuemo Guheng, that is, the Moon Lord, was a demonic power cultivator who lived over 3,000 years ago. Master Mu did not understand how the person standing in front of him could be him. But could the hypocritical righteous understand the perfection of demons? The identity of the Lord of the Moon was beyond question. To finally dispel all doubts, Yuemo Guheng showed everyone his majestic demon appearance. Not only the heads saw this appearance, but also the common people. Chu Shui assumed that Xiao Ren had asked this demon to help him, although the aura he had just sensed was not similar from the human world. But the disciple was confident that the teacher would be able to deal with it. In addition, he also felt that this was a good time to prove himself as well. Chu Shui decided to reassure all the people that his teacher and the other two heads had headed to that place, so there was nothing to worry about. Some people managed to calm down, but Qinli no longer saw the point of standing in the crowd and rushed away. She felt this terrifying aura with her whole body, and hoped that this aura was not Xiao Zhenyu's. Qinli just wanted to go and see. Teacher shouldn't be angry about this after all. The demon spoke very confidently, which made Yin Wentian angry. If he wanted to subjugate the Immortal Alliance, he had to ask Yin Wentian's permission first. In the past gathering of the 4 major sects of the Immortal Alliance, Yin Wentian was only at the initial stage of divine transformation. None of the heads understood how he was able to refine to the great completion divine transformation stage so quickly. The Moon Lord had slightly underestimated the master. He had not expected that there was a master like Yin Wentian in the world at all. Either way, it was a good thing. The Moon Lord had decided to personally instruct the Immortal Alliance master. The Tianhua demonic moon erupted. The cold disk headed towards Yin Wentian. Seeing the Moon Lord's attack as just a gust of wind, Yin Wentian decided to show off all the strength he had once stolen from his disciple. But after realizing that things were not going well for him, Yin Wentian summoned another beast, an armored turtle dragon. The masters could appreciate the truly marvelous power of the celestial core, how powerful it was, which they were convinced of with every passing minute. Things weren't good for the demon either. He hadn't reached the peak of heaven demon cultivation yet, but the difference between him and Yin Wentian was obvious. The power of the celestial core was the only opposition to the calamity. Anticipating his victory, Yin Wentian began to set his own terms. He demanded Xiao Zhen, and in return, he would give the Moon Lord an easy death. Yuemo Guheng looked at the guy in bewilderment, not understanding what kind of story could have happened to him that he was so brazenly called a traitor. In any case, Xiao Ren had a fierce strength that was respected by the Moon Lord himself. Xiao Ren had not regained his senses during this time, and acted like a wild beast off the chain. Even though he was furious, he still remembered his purpose, wishing Yin Wentian's death and demanding the return of his heavenly core. It wasn't just a scream, it was a soul scream, one that was tearing out because of the injustice done to him. These words were enough for Yuemo Guheng to realize what was wrong. Zhu continued her endless attempts to arouse her master, who was completely consumed with the desire for revenge. In his unconscious world, Xiao Ren only had a remnant of the spirit that lived within him. The suddenly appeared master noted that this guy was going through the same hardships as he once was, so the master left a trace of his mind in Xiao Zhen's body. Now the master himself decided to awaken the young man, reminding him of his promise not to harm Zhu. The master was already disappearing, but lastly he noted that his apprentice had chosen a not bad person. He also asked that she help him. Xiao Ren finally awakened after that, but in reality, things were very bad. Xiao Ren was still a monster. Now not only was Zhu trying to awaken him, but Qin Lei was also trying to awaken him. In a frenzy, he continued to shout out wishes for Yin Wentian to die. But despite this, Qin Li bravely stayed close to him. The girl had already begun to anticipate that blow, but hoped her newfound friend would stop in time. However, that's exactly what happened. Xiaoren recognized his friend Qin Li and managed to control himself in time. As soon as Xiaoren woke up, he was immediately attacked by his former teacher, who kept reproaching him for betraying and also harming the Immortal Alliance. After realizing that this stinking mortal had stolen the heavenly beast core from Xiao Zhen, the Moon Lord had definitely stepped up to defend the boy. Of course, he also had his own selfish goals. Yuemo Guheng also remembered that this guy was chosen by the Calamity Demon himself, and he also had a feud with the Immortal Alliance. If the Overlord saved him now, Xiao Ren could become his closest associate in the future. If Xiao Ren wanted to live, he had to follow Yuemo Guheng, who dared to save him. The battle was difficult, so tactical retreat was the best option. But Yin Wentian didn't want to just let his enemies go. Xiao Zhen's life was hanging by a thread. The Moon Lord realized that everything now depended only on luck, and of course from Yuemo Guheng too. With his magic wand, he conjured a magic disc that prevented the boys from falling into the abyss. And besides, this disc served as a portal to another place. The demon world was waiting for Xiao Zhen. The demon world was a rather desolate place, with no green vegetation. It was all sands and rocks. It had only been 1,000 years, and the Beast Sect had become so powerful, which was unexpected to the Moon Lord. The power of the heavenly beast was holding back the demonic power cultivators. Yuemo Guheng felt it was imperative to tell the other lord immediately, or else it would affect their plan to attack the humans. But as for that boy named Xiao Ren, he had suffered a demonic force strike. Yuemo Guheng didn't know where the young man had been transported to, whether he was alive or dead. It all depended on what fate was in store for him. Yuemo hoped that the young man would survive and become one of the main helpers in the attack on the humans. Meanwhile, Xiaoren was lying in the only passage that connected the human world and the demon world. This space was nothing. Finally waking up, he slowly began to orient himself to where he was now. There was complete emptiness and darkness everywhere. There was literally nothing around, only some opening let in a beam of light. When he touched the so-called wall, he felt something disgustingly sticky on his skin, which itself was reaching out to Xiao Zhenyu. It was painful because this sticky slurry was stealing Xiao Zhen's spiritual power. It was difficult to figure out what the hell was going on here, but perhaps Zhu knew the answer to that question. But Xiao Ren realized with unconcealed horror that Zhu was gone. Qinlo wasn't around either. Xiao Ren assumed that most likely the portal hadn't absorbed her, but Zhu had a pact with Xiao Zhen. There was no way their bodies could be separated like this. Something had to be done. The best way out for now was spiritual search. Then he found himself in his own space, and finally saw his faithful companion there, who was bound in an orb. The demoness was completely unconscious. Now it was Xiao Zhen's turn to try to awaken her. What if she was in danger? Xiaoren, fearing for Zhu's life, began to bang with all his might. After all, she had promised him that she was bound to him for life and couldn't just leave him. Xiaoren ordered like her master to make the girl wake up as soon as possible. The order worked. The entire balloon simply burst, much to the surprise of Xiao Zhen himself. Before he could react, he accidentally touched Zhu's chest. The demoness was already thinking that her master really liked her human form, but he was very embarrassed. And Zhu was just making jokes as usual. Zhu was playing him for such a moment. Now they were in a bad position and didn't even know where they were, but that was just Xiao Ren didn't know. Zhu was fully aware of everything, and right now, they were in the only passage that connected the demon world and the human world. 1,000 years ago, Zhu, her master, had also been here. The demoness didn't expect that after many years she would be in this familiar place again. In this space, the path to nowhere for Zhu and Xiao Zhen was completely unsafe, so the guys first needed to find a way to get out of here. If it was a path connecting the demon and human worlds, then there was definitely a way to return to the human world, which was a correct assumption. But the demonic abyss had been sealed by immortal force cultivators 1,000 years ago. Given Xiao Zhen's capabilities and strength, they wouldn't be able to break the seal. So there was only one way left: go to the demon world. It was the only way, and besides, there was no time for doubts. An infinite number of deceased souls along the way have already smelled the odor of man. If you start doubting, you can die right here. In that case, it was unanimously decided: go to the demon world. The dead people couldn't find a place to be as soon as they saw the man. They assumed that Xiao Ren was already their previous acquaintance, and had now returned. Whether it was the path to nowhere or the demon world, no one could stop Xiao Shen. He made a promise to himself that he would return to the Beast Sect. Let Yin Wentian wait for him. The disciple would return soon. The demon world was different from the human world. There were many dangers. Xiao Ren and Zhu were not afraid of anything. But as for Qin Li, she was all alone, abandoned to her fate. The little demon stood next to the abandoned girl and waited. When she would wake up, but all together they were afraid of each other, since they were strangers. Fortunately, they knew human language, so they explained to the girl that she was in Dunnan village. Plus they noticed that the sister was not from the demon world. Of course, Qin Li had never heard of this village and this place in general. Well, of course, she was not from the demon world. With undisguised horror, she finally realized where she was and what the traveler was telling her. As expected, on their way to the demon world, they encountered various beasts that wanted to eat human flesh. These bears were different from the other two demon wolves they had previously encountered. The bears had a golden core with above-average cultivation. They also had very strong and indomitable thunder power. It would be very good if Xiao Ren could absorb the golden cores of these bears. Xiao Ren decided to take a chance and caused a rain of chaos to rain down, which flooded the entire space where the bears were. A certain stranger was watching this incident. In the demon world, he had never seen such a strong man before. This person was strong, but not strong enough in the stranger's opinion, so he decided to test Xiao Zhen's abilities. Something like a small gathering was taking place in the immortal world. Yin Wentian concluded that Xiao Ren had contacted the demon world after being expelled from the sect, and planned an attack on the human world. How ashamed the chairman was that he had missed the traitor, and that he had caused such a calamity to the human world and the Immortal Alliance. Therefore, he decided that he would leave with the 3 best disciples of the Beast Sect from the Immortal Alliance and go to guard the demon abyss. But this was something that couldn't be done. The cultivation of Yin Wentian's head was good, but right now, the human world was in danger of being attacked by the demon attack. The Immortal Alliance was in dire need of Yin Wentian, as Master Mu believed. The Beast Sect was dominating the Immortal Alliance. It would be a good idea to use this opportunity to weaken Yin Wentian's strength, Zheng Changxi pondered. Because she didn't even give a correct sentence, she said. Her thoughts were occupied with her favorite student, who was in danger, so she decided to leave the decision to the 2 heads, thus not setting herself up. She had to do everything carefully so she wouldn't attract the attention of the Beast Clan, and so that there wouldn't be any questions for her, she just disappeared. Master Mu was left unsupported, so he decided to still support Yin Wentian in his desire and said goodbye as well. And actually, after seeing Yin Wentian's strength and abilities, they couldn't have a different opinion. After all, this was a world where the strongest were the most powerful. As for Xiao Zhen, it would take some time to establish his guilt. But now everyone knew that he was related to demons. Would there be a safe haven for him in this world now? Yin Wentian decided to announce an order from the Immortal Alliance to inform all sects about the demon world invasion, and he also ordered his disciples to announce to everyone about Xiao Zhen's connection with demons. Qu Shui and Nanggong were only too happy to poke at their favorite teacher to gain acceptance from him. In the ancient records of the clan, there was one record that a cultivator had contacted the demon world 1,000 years ago and harmed the entire human world. As a result, he was surrounded by an alliance of immortals and was killed and buried without a tombstone. These were the consequences of being connected to the demon world. But regardless of whether he lived or died, from this day forward, he would no longer pose a threat to Yin Wentian and the Beast Sect. Xiao Zhenyu and Zhu had managed to gather 4 cores of mid to top level beasts. This was quite a harvest. Yes, only because of the battle with the thunder creatures, Xiao Zhen's hair was electrified, causing Zhu to laugh. And yet the demoness decided to help with that. She knew beauty, and she knew how to bring it on. Xiao Zheng's hair had become its former and silky state, although the guy didn't even expect that Zhu could bring it back to its former state. After all, her master's handsome appearance was something she remembered forever. She hadn't used this technique on her host before, and for good reason. Even though she was a demon, she's a girl first and foremost, and this spell was something personal to her, so she could admire her own face. But all their courtesies were cut short, as soon as a noise was heard in the midst of the trees. A new bear had appeared, and what's more, he was much bigger than the others. It was the king of the Thunder Bears, the Lord. The Bear King had an impressive strength. He possessed a top-level heavenly core. There was no doubt about it. The stranger kept on observing. As a result of his observations, he realized that this person was a cultivator from the human world. Therefore, he hoped that if he brought this cultivator to the demon prison, the Overlord would reward him well.